Hello everyone and happy Whiskey Wednesday. We are freezing. It's -2 degrees, probably -30 wind chill, whatever people want to say, in the Midwest in Columbus, Ohio right now. And we're starting episode 52. Next week will be like our full 1 year, but we're celebrating our 1 year today. It's been a wild ride. We're glad to be here, so thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for your patience too.
Yeah.
Jake go ahead. Tell the news.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it on the audio, but I had my first sale at the new job, so that was exciting. We have Dustin Bovey on tonight to celebrate to kick off basically our new year next week, and we're going to be sipping on the Auchentoshan single malt Scotch 3-wood. We've talked about it a little bit, and Dustin introduced this to us last year at pretty much the same time. Mm-hmm. And we're also going to be smoking the Leaf by Oscar Maduro. I know a lot of you like that out there. And then our second cigar of the evening, provided by Altadis USA, is going to be the Montecristo Classic series. Yeah. And our topic is basically going to be a bunch of topics because we're going to be compiling all the questions that you guys and gals have been sending us over the past week or so. If you didn't see it, we were going to be pulling questions out of a hat. We're not necessarily pulling questions out of a hat tonight, but we're going to be answering the questions that you guys had. And there was a lot of good ones, so thank you for you guys. Eric Black, I know you had a lot of very good questions, so thank you, Eric, and everyone that contributed. So, and that will make this really interesting, I think.
Mm-hmm. All right, go ahead and share it. I got to plug in the phone.
Okay. So, as we're sharing it, like we always like to say, please like it, please share it. We know it's cold, but if you're smoking tonight somewhere in a cigar lounge, anywhere, tell us what you're smoking on, and tell us what you're sipping on if you're drinking tonight for Whiskey Wednesday. So, thank you and cheers.
Go ahead and share it.
How many other people out there actually have the Auchentoshan 3-wood and or the Leaf by Oscar Maduro? Those who are currently viewing.
Matt Stiles, Paul Waller, Alicia, Tony, Jake Sanders,
Steve Crane,
Jake,
Eric Black.
Yeah. What's the other thing I want to say? A year into it, for those of you who are watching Facebook, a year ago we didn't have Facebook Live doing this, and yet the coldest day that I can remember, we're all running around. Jake's got the new job. I'm running around. I just went over to the new house just to take a look at it with Liz, and we are about 20 minutes late and not as prepared as always. So we still have room for improvement is what I'm getting at.
No,
because
I love it. I love it.
Cool.
It's the spontaneity of the thing.
But it's a planned event, so how is that spontaneous? Do you know?
You don't know what's spontaneous.
My day was definitely spontaneous.
All right, let's go. Are you shared up?
Yeah, I'm good. Right. I'm ready to
We
rock.
always say about 7 o'clock.
We always actually do. So
I think we pushed it tonight.
I will.
All right, you ready for your thingy?
Bingy.
Oh, that was real weak.
Oh, well. Happy Whiskey Wednesday, everyone. Welcome to the Bourbon and BS podcast. I'm Jake Sanders, along with Steve Crane, and we're accompanied tonight by our good friend Dustin Bovey, that hasn't been on in a while, but we're glad to have you back on, man. Yeah. We're going to be sipping on Auchentoshan 3-wood tonight that Dustin was gracious enough to bring. We're going to be smoking the Leaf by Oscar Maduro, which is a great, great cigar. We're going to be smoking the Toro size. We're also going to be smoking on the Montecristo Classic series provided by our main sponsor, Altadis USA. And then Tinder Box and Easton, they provided the Leaf by Oscar. And thank you, BS Cigar Company. As always, Brian and Steve, you make an amazing cigar. So,
yeah.
How's it going?
It's going really well.
Yeah.
Been a big week for everyone. It's fucking cold.
Really?
Although it's 44 degrees according to Miss Honeywell over here.
And that's really cold for some people.
It's really cold for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's cold.
I mean,
you can see my breath. I'm not even smoking yet. I'm just lighting up my cigar, and you can see my breath as if I'm puffing on a cigar.
For audio listeners, we are bundled up. I'm in my big filthy coat with fur. Steve's got his classic style of the sweater over the sweatshirt with a toboggan on. Dustin's covered up too, so we're ready to rock and roll. It's just another Whiskey Wednesday.
Paul Waller says he's got to dip off, but we'll be back later. So,
all right.
We're getting a lot of congratulations so far on the Facebook Live for the 52 episodes.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I had a crazy day. I did my first sale at the first job. For those that, have heard that I started a new job, I had my first sales gig today that, pretty much made it. And I was happy for it, and that's why we started late this evening. And but we're only about 20 minutes, so it's fine. We normally say about 20, or about 7. But we're here. Anyways, if this is your first time,
but we're here.
Yeah, if this is your first time listening, please share it, like it, tell a friend about it. Steve and I try to share it, and Dustin share it in groups that we're involved in on Facebook. So if you feel comfortable with that, please do that. And we talk about a whiskey, we talk about a cigar, and we have a topic. So tonight our topic is a bunch of different topics mangled together. They're just questions that we were going to pull out of a hat, but we've been asking our viewers, you guys, our questions within the last week, what you've had about whiskey, life, cigars, anything that you can think of that you would like us to answer. And we had a lot of good questions, right?
We did have some good questions, and I want to say right now we're up to 20-some people watching on Facebook Live already.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So if you guys are out there right now watching, throw them on the conversation so we can pull from those as well. If you're going to be listening, or even if you have to dip off like Paul did. If you have a question that you'd like to hear something about, go with it.
Yes.
Send a message even if you want to.
Yeah. How was your week, Dustin? I know I can't remember.
Need some extra whiskey.
It's been a while since you've been on, and we're not going to go back and try to.
It was my birthday.
Was it your birthday? Okay.
It was.
So what? Like
month and a half.
Month and a half ago. 6 episodes ago, roughly.
I think you were on
56.
Oh no.
No, I'm sorry. 46.
What day's your birthday again?
The 12th. 1.
I just said we're not going to try and figure this out.
Yeah, Steve, don't hurt yourself.
How's been your week, man?
Well, it had I don't want to say a rough start, but a busy start nonetheless.
It's just the middle, man. It's Wednesday.
I know.
What are you saying?
It's a start. You got Monday. Everyone dreads Mondays. I mean, what the hell's up with Tuesday? It's a nothing day. It's almost worse than Monday.
Nice. Tuesdays are awesome because I work at the shop.
Oh well, yeah, that's
there you go.
That's
there's
one
that.
of the only plus sides to Tuesday. No, I mean my week's been pretty decent. Just busy with work, really. Last week I worked all 3rd shifts, which was a huge change to my sleep schedule, but at the same time it allowed me to kind of do some other things that I wanted to do. Get back into the gym a little bit more, and
sure.
I started eating healthier like I was about this time a year ago, which I've noticed a big difference in my mood and my I don't want to say personality, but my energy level's been a lot higher, which is great. Because I'd come home from work and just be dragging like crazy.
Sure.
And definitely noticed a big change just within that week. So.
So really, things are looking up.
Yeah, things are looking great. Yeah, and I got to go visit my girlfriend, another girl, Cadence, over the weekend. That was fun.
Very nice.
Yeah, I went down and surprised them. They had zero idea that I was going
to. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Crap.
I was in cahoots with her mom to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really great time. Really great time. Just kind of relaxed on that Saturday night. Got up, made pancakes, played some board games Sunday before I had to come back and go to work.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I don't like board games.
Do we have any updates on the Tinder Box?
Incentive event, you mean?
Yes. That thing.
Tinder Box is still open for business.
Yeah.
No, not officially. I'm not going to get into that tonight, actually.
Okay.
That is something that I am hoping to have an answer for by next episode. And it could be a bad one. It could be not what you want to hear. So we'll see.
Okay. Cool.
We're getting some good questions already.
We are. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Tony, for providing some questions. We'll get those once we get to our topic.
Welcome, Mitch Smith.
Yes.
First time here, so thank you.
Very, very nice. Oh, I went to the concert that we talked about last week,
Yeah.
Whiskey Myers. And for the live viewers, I actually went down and Lishai went down and spent some time with Matthew Stiles, and it was amazing meeting his family and getting to finally see like his home that he actually built, and his whiskey collection, and sampling some bottles, and
that's fantastic.
and getting to see like, because he's homemade his own bar out of there's just big struts and big beams that he got from I believe his grandfather's barn.
Wow.
And that they tore down, and he actually, coated them and everything, and put them in his own, home bar, which is amazing. And it looked beautiful, Matt, and thank you for having us again. So.
He's a hell of a craftsman.
Oh, yeah.
Hell of a craftsman.
Yeah, for sure. So.
Talk about sharing, liking.
Yep.
Already? Or was that on? I can't, we talk on the Facebook Live first. I don't know if you did it on the audio yet.
Yeah,
so.
no, we did.
All right, cool.
We did. So, we're sipping on the Auchentoshan 3-wood. Now, again, it's a triple distilled. Dustin brought it. Thank you, Dustin, for
absolutely.
It's really good for a Scotch. Yeah, it comes from Highland, right?
It's a lowland, actually.
Lowland, okay.
I thought it was a Highland.
Opposite.
Yeah. Highland,
Got it. But you can go into it, Dustin. I'm just looking.
So, funny story. So, exactly 1 year ago, yesterday, was the first time that I ever had this. And ironically, it was actually the first whiskey that I had ever had neat. It was also the first whiskey I ever had while paired with a cigar.
Let's take a step back, though. So just from a year, let's just think about, this is the first whiskey you had neat, right?
Yep. Yeah.
It's a Scotch.
Yep.
And how many bourbons do you have and ryes that are in your...
amazing.
He's got a better shelf than I do. It's got lights and bars, and it's all wood, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I mean, how many bottles do you think you have after a year of getting into this? 40?
30-ish, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not quite that many, but...
It's much like any other collecting thing, hobby.
Yeah.
You get addicted to it.
I'm
and it's not because of the alcohol.
It's really not. It has absolutely nothing to do with, the strength of it. I mean, part of it does if it's like a barrel proof or a barrel strength.
Yeah.
But that's also just because that's, just like you, I want to taste what the master distiller tasted.
Right.
I want to know what they tasted when they first poured it out, to know whether or not this barrel was prime perfect to be bottled.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the closest you can get to what they were tasting straight from the barrel.
Yeah. I think that drives a lot of us, really.
It really does. It really does. And it's not even, like I said, the proof, it doesn't have anything to do with getting drunk. And, I tell anyone and everyone that, it's the flavors, and for me, it's the stories, it's the history, it's the memories that's created with it.
Yeah.
This bottle is a prime example of that. And when I had it, I went, I was with my best friend Ben, and we went up to Woodland up in Delaware, and just hanging out, and I pulled the bottle out, and we poured a glass, and just hung out, and the cigar I paired it with was the Leaf by Oscar Maduro.
Yeah.
Which coincidentally was also his cigar he had for his wedding. But it's definitely progressed over the years as far as my, quote...
Just 1 year.
Passion.
Just 1 year.
Obsession, depending on who you ask.
Just 1 year.
In 1 year.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
It does. And it's, I've dove down the cigar world almost as much, too. And it's, the same kind of... passion, you want to try different things, and you learn what you like, and just keep going from there, and knowing the different regions for tobacco, different countries, stuff like that. But to dig into the Auchentoshan 3-wood, so it is a single malt Scotch, but Auchentoshan as a brand reinforces the reputation by triple distilling.
Yeah.
And they do the same process as Irish whiskey. So as I progress, you're going to notice that this Scotch, being the first Scotch that we've had, has a lot to do with, a lot of relations and correlations to the bourbons that we've had and the different finishes that there are and things like that. So it uses the Irish style of triple distilling.
Yeah, they make that very clear. They got like the 3 pot stills on the front, triple distilled, every single drop triple distilled. They tell you the whole 9 yards.
Yep. It
actually says it twice on the label there. It says triple distilled above the actual name, and it says it along the neck of the bottle and down at the bottom.
Yeah.
So they say it 3 times.
They definitely want you to know, and that's just Auchentoshan itself.
In general.
Yeah, in general. And they've got a few different varieties. There's the 3-wood, there's American Oak, I think there's a Masters Select or something like that. There's a couple others too.
Yeah.
But they're known as the lighter of the scotches, if you will. When I first heard about Auchentoshan, I read it in an article because I wanted to know what would be the best scotch for someone just trying to get into it.
Yeah.
Quote, beginner scotch.
I think we had a question about that, like whiskey in general.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that later.
Yeah. So this was one of the ones that came up as far as the best beginner's whiskey. It's got that lighter flavors, the lighter notes, but Auchentoshan kind of being that kind of more reserved Scotch brand compared to a lot of the others, being that smoky, peaty.
Yeah.
They kind of went full grade, and the 3-wood comes from being finished in 3 separate casks.
Okay.
So it's actually aged for 10 years in ex-bourbon American oak barrels.
Yeah.
Then it's moved to 1 year in Pedro Jimenez sherry casks.
Interesting.
And then finished another final year in Oloroso sherry casks.
Huh.
So it's a total of 12 years worth of aging.
With 3 different barrels.
Yes.
Interesting.
3 different barrels.
Cool.
It's noted, what I'm reading right here, it's noted as, quote, a sherry monster of undeniable weight and ferocity.
Ferocity?
Ferocity, that's what it says. But the thing is, though, is, we've tried, you've mentioned before trying sherry finished bourbons.
Yeah.
I'm just not a fan.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because, I've said that, and I think, Angel's Envy started the whole thing with, port barrels, with bourbon, and I think that Scottish, heritage really calls for, they've always done, sherry barrels and American oak, but they never really
blended.
Yeah, they never really, honed in on one barrel specifically. And I think that nowadays, especially with the Scotch industry, you see a lot of them going towards that sherry cask and the bourbon cask. And then, with, Auchentoshan throwing in that Oloroso sherry, I mean, that's a big one. If someone's never tried a bourbon or any type of whiskey that was aged in it, there's something about an Oloroso sherry cask that does something different to the whiskey, and it makes it so fruity. We talk about that dark fruits.
You get a lot of fruit, period, from this. You get dark fruit, you get light fruit, you get a variety of stuff from it. I want to read this overall quote. I want to say review.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
This is actually quite hysterical.
Go ahead.
If this was once Auchentoshan, then the sherry monster murdered it and stuffed it in a closet.
Yeah.
While Auchentoshan Classic is understated, vanilla, and crisp, this is resinous, sticky, sweet, and overripe.
Nice.
That's not to say it's bad. While the Auchentoshan rots slowly in its closet, the sherry monster throws a wild party. The kind that ends with garments hanging from chandeliers.
See, this is one of these reviews that, I can sit here and get all geeked out and stuff, and you can too now that you're on there, but, and then Steve laughs at us both, but it's interesting to hear that, and this is what we're talking about, people, when they get, super, super poetic, I'll throw out, a weird note probably every episode, but there's one. I don't go into this, poetic scheme of,
the last line of this is it's funny.
Go ahead.
If you're a fan of sherry and it's all its guises, then you must grab a bottle, bypass the police tape, and witness the gory crime scene for yourself.
See, that's too
And
much.
it's just a little much.
That's too much. Have you tried? I mean, have you tried a sip of the new stuff? We have one, and we're gonna do a kind of a side by side here after we get all the notes from everyone, and probably when we start our subject of the evening with all of our questions. But besides from the one that Dustin still has the one that he opened last year, the Auchentoshan 3 wood, and it's here tonight. So it's been open for a year.
Yeah.
Now we just popped a new bottle tonight, and if I may say, right off the bat, like we just said, like with the Oloroso sherry, just the rich fruit notes. I mean, it's just very, very overpowering. It just red grapes all over the place.
Yeah. Oh,
Red
absolutely.
grapes, raisins, anything, and we talked about like the tasting wheel or whatever Steve called it, like an all-encompassing like whiskey wheel, really. But and it's got like, it's so dark. We talked about that as soon as we got it out of the box, right? Like it's not even like a honey. It's a deep amber color.
It's molasses color almost.
Yeah, and there's like a red orange like hue to it. I mean, you can tell that it was aged in some kind of wine barrel.
Yeah, and that's where you get that grape.
And not only one, but it was aged in 2 wine barrels.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have that, and then it's just, I think it's amazing. This was like besides, I forget what I had tried with you, Steve.
Was it one of
The first
Little Scotch.
Yeah. Was it
Glenfiddich 12?
It was a Glenfiddich 12.
15.
15, that's,
And
yeah.
you bought the Glenfiddich 14, that bourbon one.
We didn't really care for it. That
Kind of
was,
horseshit.
but this was the second Scotch that I had
Good.
that I tried when Dustin brought it to us last year, and I've loved it ever since. I haven't like got a bottle for it, but I mean, what is it, like
$65.99.
$65.99 in the state of Ohio? So
It's on that upper end, but
if you want
you're
good
looking.
Scotch,
But you just gotta think, it was finished in Oloroso sherry cask. I can't imagine those are.
yeah, it's 12 years old, basically.
Oh, yeah, 12 years. They do make an American oak version, which I grabbed the bottle of it. So if you want to try Auchentoshan for, half that price, is $33.95, something like that for the American oak.
They've brought out some of those now, like even like Glenlivet and some of the other scotches have been bringing out some more modestly priced stuff.
Yeah, I think.
I think they're trying to get to the bourbon market, really.
I think they are, but I think that you got to be careful with some of the scotches, because you get something that's a little too peaty. Then you try to age it in bourbon barrels, it could be a little too overwhelming.
You think so?
But they're
I would
using bourbon
think so.
barrels.
They are, but you still have some of that remnants in the wood.
No, but a lot of them.
A lot of them are.
Yeah.
Scottish and Irish.
I don't think Lefroy's, maybe.
I don't know. But again, they're charring them again. So maybe when they're doing the bourbon barrel or they're doing that stuff, they're just not charring them the way they want to. They're just basically using them more straight, so there's more remnants of it.
They could be. I mean, for this being aged for 10 years in ex-bourbon barrels.
I'd like to try it just
after that.
Yeah, is that what do you think that's what was in
The American oak?
Yeah. Do you think that's what that is? I wonder if that's what that is.
I don't know.
Look at it.
And I wonder because then they don't have to go through 2 years of process changing it in and out of 2 different barrels.
It could be.
I wonder, but it's curious. Dustin will look that up, but what do you think, Steve?
I like it, man. This
like
is I enjoy it.
It's honestly hard to smell in the garage. It's cold, people. It's like -2 in here, so. Well, it's 44, but it's
44.
-2 outside. Come on.
Who said in here?
All right.
Hey, we're gonna miss this garage here when we're gone.
We got a
So,
month. Is it a month?
It's about a month, yeah. So I went over and looked at the new house again tonight. They're supposed to be out tonight. They've got a couple more things in there they got to get Friday. So
Yeah.
but no big deal. Got some stuff to do, but it'll be should be good. So. But as far as this goes, I think I enjoyed Scotch. We talked about it before. I enjoyed Scotch before I really got into more bourbons. But I mean, we were talking about the price thing. I mean, my view of this is that the Scotches have gone up. So I took kind of a break from buying bottles for the house. It was more like drinking out at bars more than drinking
You used to
at
have
home.
a hell of a Irish and Scotch collection.
I had a decent one, and then it all kind of like slowly went. If you don't replenish it, it's not gonna stay that nice.
Unfortunately.
But when I went back and started looking at scotches, even it was something that they had all gone up $5-10 a pop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's happening in the bourbon side, and I think what's happening is the Scotch. You're right. I think the Scotch and Irish are going, especially the Scotch. They're going after some of the bourbon prices, but now the bourbons are going up towards the Scotch prices.
Yeah,
so
they really are.
I don't think there's really a rhyme or reason consistently, but I can see them putting out products that are going to be competing with the others.
Yeah, it's.
But this is very good.
I think it's very, very good. On the bottle, it says rich fruit notes, hazelnut, vanilla, chocolate. Well, not vanilla. Chocolate is what they say, and that's right on the bottle. I don't know. Like I said, like it's really hard to smell in here tonight just because of it being cold. And,
plus, we're getting smoked out in here.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just like this is one of those. What I like about this, the Auchentoshan 3-wood, is the fact that it is fruity.
It does have some fruit.
It's got some floral notes, but it's like rich. I mean, if you've never had something out of an Oloroso sherry cask, I mean that's literally what it tastes like.
It's got a lot of notes of the sherry for sure. That's where I think all that.
Because I had like
literally where all the fruity notes come from is your 2 separate sherry casks.
Yeah, like I had a Cavallon. If you don't know what, like if people don't know what that is, it's a, it's not a Japanese whiskey. It's I think it's from Taiwan.
Okay.
But it's sourced whiskey, and I forget the master blender's name that created it, but they're part of. They have like a society that pays every year, of course, and they do like a special bottle. Well, I tried the one from last year that was done in Oloroso sherry casks, and it was like 112 proof. I don't know where the whiskey actually came from, but I'm telling you this stuff, if you looked at it in the bottle, it looked black, and it tasted like, I mean, I do say this a lot, but it really did taste like a chocolate covered cherry or like a chocolate covered raisin. And it was just so rich,
really,
and just potent. I mean, it was crazy, but it was almost black. It was unbelievable.
What was this called?
It was Cavallon.
Cavallon.
But it was one of their like special series that they do every year, once a year, to a society that pays their distillery anyway. Anyways, but it was done in Oloroso sherry, and it tasted kind of like this on the back end, where it's just rich fruits, deep fruit notes, floral, but it has all those rich chocolate, maybe caramel from the bourbon casks.
It says hazelnut on that.
Yeah.
On the bottle.
Yeah, but very, very good. It's not one of the. It's one of those things that it's not. It's a Scotch that isn't smoky, peaty.
It's not scotchy.
It's not scotchy. And I like that. I'm not a big smoky and peaty guy.
Well, this is a lowland Scotch, and lowlands aren't typically known to be peaty.
It's mostly
your Highland Scotches are more known as peaty.
Yeah, or Speyside. Speyside gets smoky.
What's interesting about, I'm sure you guys talked about it when I was inside, but I mean the fact that it's triple distilled, that's an interesting thing.
It's
an Irish thing.
Yeah,
well, it says it says on this. I mean, 23 or something like that. You guys probably went over that. Not that I don't want to be repetitive, but the fact that they say that they're the only Scottish distillery that does that.
Yeah, they do it, and that's one of the points I made to Steve. While you were gone, or to Jake while you were gone.
I was like, I don't remember
to
talking
Steve while
about
you were gone, Jake. But it's a very unique blend of kind of tying different whiskeys together. I mean, they do the Irish style triple distilling, where they literally, Jake pointed out, state it everywhere on the bottle.
They say it 4 times in that
Oh,
bottle.
for sure.
And then it's aged for 10 years in ex-bourbon barrels. And then it's finished in 2 separate sherry casks. And, finishing in separate casks is a thing that, Scotches have been doing when bourbons are trying to do.
Yeah.
Angel's Envy is a key one. They finished their bourbon and port wine and the rise in Caribbean rum.
Dude, I saw the aging warehouse this past weekend when we went down there for the first time.
At Angel's Envy.
And it was really interesting because they age their barrels on a separate location off-site.
Okay.
But then when they bring the whiskey back, they dump it, and then when they pour it into the port barrels and the rum barrels, the rum and the port barrels are aging there. And to go into like their back room and to see the port barrels and the rum barrels, it's interesting because I've never seen a rum barrel. And so for those that don't know, a whiskey barrel or like a bourbon barrel is going to be around that 53 mark. Some are 60, the really big ones.
60 what for everyone?
60 gallons.
Okay.
Or 53 gallons is main.
Yeah.
For standard for bourbon barrels. But then the port barrels, the wine barrels were like 63. And then right next to them, you see these, like, they almost looked like really big grenades. They were like, because the rum barrels are...
They're swollen, don't they?
Well, they're really short. They're
But
like...
they're fat?
Yeah, they're like
Yeah.
43 gallons.
Yeah.
And they're all, obviously, rums, like, made out of sugar cane. So
Sure.
they're basically black. Like,
Yeah.
they're all messed up. But it's awesome. And I just wanted to mention that. It was interesting to
That's
see.
very
Oh
interesting.
yeah.
But I think this is very good. Thank you, Dustin, for
Absolutely.
bringing this. I'm interested to see what it tastes like after, like a year of
It's been
sitting.
opening up.
Yeah,
I can tell you, I had a third bottle that I bought shortly after that one when it got down to about
Sure.
where it's at now, and I drank it down and let it sit for, a good few months, and then came back to it, and it definitely mellows.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Mellows how, like on the finish or just overall?
Yeah, so it definitely mellows the finish.
Yeah.
You still get the fruity notes, but you get a little bit, I don't want to say softer, but it's like a more smooth, dark fruit.
Yeah.
It becomes a little bit
It's
more...
just lighter. It's not
Yeah,
as
it
potent. as
it
this
becomes
is.
more smoothed over, if you will.
Yeah.
Of all the flavors kind of blending together, where you taste this and you can get like hits of this and hits of that.
Yeah.
This is just kind of really it mingled very well, and it just kind of opened up in the barrel
Yeah.
in the bottle.
A little meat and grease in your
Yeah,
mouth.
a little
Is that what
meat
we're talking about now?
taste buds. How
Yeah.
you doing?
A little cocktail hour.
I can
On your
definitely.
tongue.
One thing I can always tell with like Scotch is like the barley, right? Like even if you go to like a single malt, there's a lot of distilleries in America that are now doing that. Like Balcones in Texas, they started doing their single malt, and you can definitely taste the difference in the grain. And it's just interesting. I thought that was like important to mention. I don't know.
I don't know. Does anyone else, on Facebook Live while we move into the cigar, unless you guys want to keep talking about
No, go ahead.
this, anyone out there actually drinking scotch? Did we discover that? So I was inside for a few
I
minutes.
haven't yet. So that's what I posted a photo on the page.
Yeah.
Last Friday, when I picked up the bottle with the cigar, we wanted to try to do something a little different, and give a shout out of what the cigar is going to be for next week.
Sure, yeah.
So people can try that. Well, I wanted to do both. If someone can get their hands on a bottle of the 3-Wood, which it's in various liquor stores around Ohio, you got to kind of search for it though.
You think
It's
so?
definitely, it's definitely
So
not one
this
of the
one
more
came
popular
from-
ones, I don't think.
No, it's
Before
definitely
you
not.
introduced it to me, I'd never heard of it.
And I'd never heard of it until it came up in an article, and I asked someone else, like, oh yeah. Of course, Brad Grimsley knows exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But this one came from the liquor store up in Polaris, and I know my old liquor
Chateau?
store. No, the Kroger.
Oh, okay.
And then my old store, which has a liquor store, still had some of it in there, and I asked
Yeah.
her.
I feel like it's going to be there for a long time.
It is. And the best part is I had them order 2 more cases before I left with that, because I'd been talking about it and had some people say, yeah, I'm going to stop in and pick it up, because there's only 6 bottles in a case.
Sure.
I'm going to pick up 2 more cases.
It's going to be a while.
Guess who never showed up?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, that guy got moved, but it's
Good.
you can find it. It's a matter of, do you want to drop this?
Yeah, Casey said if you're in the Columbus area, Northwest Wine and Spirits on Bethel Road has it. So yeah, it's out there. Check it out. I enjoy it. Jake's doing the older bottle here.
Lot. There you go.
Is that okay?
But so, what do you guys think about it pairing with the cigar before I get into the cigar?
Go ahead.
I really like it.
Do you?
Yeah, I think it's a great pairing. The cigar is a much fuller bodied cigar, but it doesn't pack a lot of spice. It's got a nice smooth flavor to it. It's a lot of flavor, but it's real smooth. I think it, with the Auchentoshan 3-Wood and those fruity notes, it gives it a good blend, kind of like that dark chocolate covered raisin,
Okay.
if you will.
What do you think, Jake?
Um,
I don't like the sound of that.
No. I was just thinking. I was gathering my thoughts for a second. No, I like the Leaf by Oscar Maduro a lot. I like this Toro a lot better than the 60 ring gauge. Is that weird coming from me? Because
you're evolving. You're growing up.
Yeah.
Welcome to the big league.
This Toro is actually really, really good. And, we on the podcast, you hear us talk a lot about, it's either a standalone cigar and a standalone whiskey.
Yeah.
But they sometimes pair, and that's a good thing. And sometimes they don't, and that's fine. I think that this is a great cigar. I'll say this right now. I think it's a great cigar with any whiskey. But what I like about it with the Auchentoshan that we just opened up is that you have like these, like you said, Dustin, like these deep, dark, just like toffee and just like chocolate notes. And maybe, I think that the whiskey complements the cigar on this one.
Okay, yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah.
We had a couple questions, we'll get into that, like whether you pick one or the other for the one or the other. And but I think the whiskey complements the cigar on this because the cigar has got, I think it's more of a medium to full. I don't think it's full. I think this is a great cigar that someone that wants to move into full flavor but that doesn't want to get knocked over the head. I think that the Auchentoshan 3 Wood is a great buffer for someone that is a bourbon drinker and wants to move into Scotch.
Yeah.
Or any type of other whiskey and, really wants to...
Or even roll into Scotch itself.
Yeah. If you're a Scotch guy and you want to move into bourbon. I mean, I think the Auchentoshan 3 Wood is a great buffer between a Scotch and a bourbon guy or a woman. And I think this is a great pairing, to be honest. I think we nailed it on the head tonight.
Yeah, I agree. So this leaf, have we done a leaf before? Did we do Connecticut or something? Or
we did a Connecticut way back when.
So some of this, for people that do tune in every week, this might be some review. But, I mean, the leaf is kind of, it comes from the name Leaf and Bean in Pittsburgh.
I had no idea.
No.
I did not know
you don't
that.
listen all the time. But, so there's a guy that owns a shop called Leaf and Bean in Pittsburgh. And I've been there before, and it's basically, so Island Jim is the guy's nickname. So he basically dresses up in Hawaiian shirts, like straw hat, cowboy hat, and like the Wayfair styles with like a bright yellow or whatever rim around it. He has the shops there, and then also he collaborated with this guy Oscar Valadares, and Oscar is from Honduras, and so he has like a leaf by Esteban. He has a leaf. This is leaf by Oscar. So you'll see Oscar's products, and you'll see these from like Leaf and Bean, but this is the one that really took off because.
Where does the bean come from?
So he has coffee in there too in his shop. So he has like little like coffee bars,
cool.
Stuff like that.
Interesting.
But I mean, you go in this place, and maybe I'll try to find the old picture. But when we were there, I mean, it's like it kind of has that Margaritaville feel, but messier. It's like there's shit everywhere in this place. And
he's a hoarder.
It's just right there on the strip. So it's like all the wall space is taken. There's a bunch of like little like knickknacks all over the place. Yeah. Again, he's got a coffee bar. The humidor's not huge, but it's got a decent selection, and also it has his stuff in there as well.
Where's that again? I'm sorry.
Pittsburgh, PA.
Pittsburgh, PA.
It's in the Strip District. I forget what it's called, but I think it's in the Strip. I don't know. I'm looking here.
The Strip.
It's interesting. There's a lot of you hear a lot of cigar, I want to say manufacturers or products come from smaller shops like that are extremely well known.
Right.
Typically it's Florida, down along the coast or something.
With this one, I think it was something where, at least in our area, John Demharder, who's from Pittsburgh, and he's now recently retired, cigar broker rep. Well, he was doing some major lines, and then he's friends with Jim. And so he started, going around with it. When this first started, they were basically doing this where, if a shop bought 20 bundles, they would actually print, instead of putting Leaf by Oscar, they would print the shop name on the bands. And so we first brought these on, and it said Tinder Box, Easton on the band.
Huh.
And these are wrapped in another tobacco leaf. All the leaf, that's part of the gimmick, and that's one of the things where, when you first see this cigar, you don't know what to think of it because it's got instead of cellophane, it's got a wrapper leaf on it, and another wrapper, and it's very ugly and it's very raw looking. and it's got a
I
band
thought
on
it
the
was
outside.
cool.
I think it draws a lot of people in.
It does, but then again, we've talked about it. I think even last week about when gimmicks. How far does that go? Does it actually turn people off? When we're looking at like bottles, looking at the band work, we're looking at things like the boxes and stuff like this. This is a bundled cigar, but again, it's this size on our shelf is $9.95. So it's got Nicaraguan wrapper and then Honduras binder and filler. And talking with Oscar, he was actually in our shop. Shoot, this is several years back now when it was still very new. He's a very nice guy. He seems to have his hands in a lot of stuff down in Honduras as far as that goes, and he's been really doing well with this stuff. He's got other lines, and then Jim again has kind of been the face behind some of this stuff, and then this has kind of projected Jim into other projects that are now more nationally. Like there is a cigar called the Island Jim, and it's got his face on it. It's got a real like shaggy foot to it, so it's very interesting. And this Jim guy travels all over. I mean, I know that some of the guys, Mark, who I went down to Cuba with, he saw Jim down in Cuba like twice now in his travels down there.
Yeah.
So he's traveling all over the place. And he's based out of Pittsburgh, PA. So it's neat. It's a very good cigar. It's rough on the outside looking, and I've seen people actually cut it and light it without taking the outer leaf off. So if you guys do see a leaf by Oscar in your cigar shop or online, make sure you take that outer leaf off.
Is it true now that you can burn through that from the band?
My understanding it is that kind of paper, but I have not tried it and I don't.
I tried it once. It wasn't very good, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like something. To be honest, it looks like something you could burn through. It looks like a soft, like what would you say, like brown paper, cardboard.
It's like black mild type paper.
Yeah.
So, but I would not encourage that.
Papyrus.
Yes, papyrus. Yeah, I think it's bone. But it's actually when you take that outer leaf off on any of the blends, I think you'll be very, very pleased with how beautiful the actual cigar wrapper leaf is. So
absolutely.
you've got a sheen to it. There's blemishes here and there, but for something like this, it's fantastic. And I mean they're extremely popular. When we first had them, it was something of the, especially because they said Tinder Box. People were like, "Oh, is this your own blend? Like, what's wrong with the cigar? Like, why does it look like that?" And as you learn about it, you take it off and you actually smoke it. We had a lot of repeat customers. And now, I know at one point I heard they were in about 400 accounts. I mean, they become a larger representation, and you see them in a lot of the cigar magazines as well being rated, and they're rated highly. So
Yeah, I wanted to point out, I looked up a picture on my phone. The Leaf by Oscar rep that was in one time, probably almost a year ago or so.
Yeah.
He gave me, we don't carry it. I wish we would start carrying it, but I know that it's kind of expensive. I don't know if it would sell, but the Oscar Habano. And I remember when he gave me that and I tried it, that was an amazing cigar, like medium body, creamy, just something really that at the time I had never really smoked anything like that before, but had like a $13 or $14 price tag on it, and
And Oscar's stuff, I mean, tends to be a little bit more up there as far as that, like $10 to $15 range. We carried the 2012, which was to, I believe, signify when he got into the cigar business. And then you have, we had the Alter Q, which was a Sumatra wrapper, and again, that came with like an $11 price tag. So they're not crazy expensive or anything like that, but some of them that we did sample did come with like a $13, $14 price tag, and it's just no one's asking for it, at least at our shop. So he has good tobacco. He rolls great as far as the production side of it. So I would definitely, if you see something with Oscar Valdez on there, definitely grab it, try it, especially if it looks like something that it fits your profile that you enjoy.
Yeah. Well, this is the Maduro. We've tried. You guys had the Connecticut on once before.
Yeah.
There's a Corojo and a Sumatra version of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think
we have the Sumatra in the shop.
We carried the Corojo at some point. It didn't sell very well. Sumatra sells very well.
Yeah, that's a good cigar.
I think those are the only four.
And we have these
in the Leaf by Oscar.
Yeah, we have these in 60s Lanceros. And Toros.
Correct. Yeah. I think this is a 6x50 or so.
Oddly enough, man, Lancero and Maduro is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's actually really, really good. And it's like a 7 by like 48, 46.
The Lancero Connecticut is fantastic.
That's probably like
Is
42.
Is it 42? Is it that small?
It's Lancero.
Very nice, light smoke.
Yeah.
Smooth and creamy.
Yeah, I agree.
I like it a lot. Steve, what do you think about the pairing?
It's interesting. I think it's okay. I think I think the Scotch is actually for me kind of the takeaway winner from this combination, because keep going back to the Leaf Maduro, and it's the finish on it. I don't want to say it's bitter, but it's kind of got a I don't want to say sour. It's like somewhere in the middle of that as far as that finish. Then I go back to the kind of like what we talked about, the fruity floral notes of the Scotch, and I am looking forward to the sips. When I smoke the Leaf by Oscar Maduro, it's a very good cigar. When I smoke it by itself, it's got more of that like kind of black pepper, but it's not strong. I agree with Jake. It's not a full-bodied cigar. I think it's more medium full.
Yeah.
So it's like just the way that it finishes for me, and then going back to the Scotch, there's something in between the two, and like right now holding the cigar, the glass is on the table. Right now, like the back of my throat, maybe it's the cold weather, maybe it's the fact that we don't have any air circulation in here, that we're all gonna get smoked out here in a little bit, but I've got more of a dryness kind of in the back of the finish, and I don't typically enjoy that for long periods of time.
I can understand that. It leaves you wanting to go back to the whiskey.
Right. Yeah, that's where I'm at. So I mean, if you guys are in the
that's
mood,
a bad thing.
I was gonna say, if you're in the mood to drink, then definitely smoke a cigar and keep going back to the bottle.
Yeah, exactly. I did try it with the aired out Auchentoshan 3 wood that Dustin had open for a year. What I will say about that being opened, it's obviously it's good. It's really good. But this is how it tasted, being the fact that, you know, I just went to Angel's Envy this past weekend. If Angel's Envy did a single malt and did the same thing but didn't use like the corn and the rye, that's what it would taste like.
Really?
Yeah. That's what it would taste like. Because the dark fruit notes, the rich fruit notes just like went away. Yeah. But it's got like all the sherry aspects there, which isn't bad. Like, I think I'm growing. Like, I don't not like it.
You think you could revisit the rabbit hole sherry finish?
Yeah, why not?
I think Jake will try pretty much anything, obviously.
Yeah, when I first started like drinking whiskey, I was like, just bourbon, blah blah blah.
I know, because you made that comment. I don't like Scotch. I hate it, and I was like, try this.
I know. I've learned.
Just try it.
I'm wrong. I was wrong.
Well, I think as you educate yourself with like Scotch, and I think we should do some more of these. You know, as far as the Scotch and the Irish and everything else, you do see, like, we were watching in the shop that documentary.
Yeah.
What's that one called?
It was just called like whiskey, but it's interesting. So if people don't know that, Scotch uses whiskey without an E.
Right.
So it's WHISKY. And I think as we were talking about it actually that night, last Tuesday, was, you know, Ryan asked, like, was there a difference between like whiskey with an E and whiskey without an E? And all of that it is really is the region where it's from, like Scotch, Ireland, and I think Japan and China and the Asian cultures, they use whiskey without an E, and then you have Canadian whiskey and American whiskey where they use an E.
Yeah.
And that's all that the difference is.
That's probably just where America and Canada's like, fuck you guys, we're doing it our way.
Yeah. No metric system.
Miles per hour, damn it.
Fuck Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Anyways, so yeah, I think the pairing's good. I like this. I'm about to try that the year-old one that we were just tapping the rest of that bottle out into Dustin's glass. Make sure you got every last drop of it.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I mean.
What is PX Sherry?
PX Sherry.
Jason Peter says PX Cherry.
So
Sherry
that's what that
it's the Pedro Jimenez.
It's a Spanish sherry
Jimenez
cask.
with an X.
Yeah, it's a Spanish sherry cask. And that stuff is actually really amazing, because that's what the Colorado whiskey that Alicia's father got me for Christmas.
Right.
That's what that's in. It's
right.
in the Spanish sherry cask.
Yeah, he says rabbit hole PX Sherry.
Yeah, so maybe I need to try that again.
Jimenez.
Yeah.
Irish has an E.
Breckenridge, that's what it's called.
Ray Cheshire from Hong Kong, also by way of the UK, says Irish has an E, Scottish has no E. I think he's right. Jameson.
Well, that's
whiskey.
weird, Ray, because the Auchentoshan
Well,
3
you
wood
can-
says whiskey without an E.
He says that.
Scotch.
Listen, Irish has an E,
Flip up
Scottish
the-
has no E.
Flip up the
No,
banner and
we
look.
got things in like poked in there. Like
And that's American
The
summer.
corner's open.
it's. I'm taking his word for it.
Okay.
But yeah, you and he are saying the same thing about this. There's
Oh,
no
okay,
E on
my
whiskey.
bad. My bad.
But no, yeah. Anyways, you want to?
What?
I love Jake and Ray, the interaction on this podcast. Whenever Ray chimes in,
It's like,
he's
nope.
in Vietnam right now, not Hong Kong. Sorry, Ray. Yeah, it's
Yeah, he
like,
moved.
even though like Jake is agreeing with him, it's like, yeah, good try, Ray. Wait,
Yeah, man.
just come with your fucking hammers are cocked
It's
already.
like Bob
ready
in
to
the
pull.
shop, and
Yeah.
then like I look out to be the asshole because he's like, whoa, why is he being? It's like you started it. Come on, man. Like, not Ray. I'm talking about Bob.
Although Ray just said, "Listen carefully, Jacob."
Well,
So now it's on. I like it.
yeah,
that's all right. That's
You
all right.
want to move into our questions and our topic for the evening? Like,
Yeah, actually,
I mean, we have a lot.
yeah. Before you do that, let's do one of the ones that from our Facebook Live. So just a reminder for everyone that's tuning in on the podcast, or if you watch this on Facebook or YouTube after the fact. Wednesday nights is when we do this. So we do have a lot of interaction with some people that are out there all over, obviously raised in Vietnam, so all over Ohio and all over the U.S. and then even elsewhere. So we've heard from people all over. If you can tune in Wednesdays around 7 o'clock, and we usually record sometime between 7 and 10 o'clock as far as the overall thing. So if you can't make 7 o'clock, don't worry, you can always chime in and ask us questions, interact. We don't always, address you specifically on the audio or talking, but we try to interact or have, Dustin a lot of times is behind the scenes, and if you see Dustin Bovey pop up and reply, typically he's behind the camera and he's kind of running that role, which is great. So
That's why we do the live, because it stays there. We did the Instagram for a little bit.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stay. So
yeah, absolutely. But we can start with this. Still fairly new to cigars, just because it's a good segue between what we just talked about and where we're going here.
yeah.
Matt Style says, still fairly new to cigars. How do I determine what I like and how to pair with my favorite bourbon? Go ahead.
You want me to go?
Go ahead, yeah. It's an open conversation here.
I think when you're trying to pair, if you have a bourbon and you're trying to pair a cigar with it, I think it's hard without like at least testing it. You know what I mean? Like,
Trial and error.
Try it out.
yeah, and I know that isn't really like a real answer, but
it is.
I think with most things, I think if you're dealing with something that it needs to balance each other. So if you have something that is full flavor with a barrel strength, it not necessarily is going to be a good pairing.
Yeah.
And we found that out on the podcast with the Oliva V and the Bookers.
Yeah.
And so I think when you're looking for pairings, I think you're looking for a balanced thing where you have a balanced like meetup really, where you have a low proof or lower proof whiskey or a higher, or say example, lower proof whiskey, and then you may have a full flavor cigar but more medium body. I think that's a good pairing. I think that's what we kind of have here, where the Auchentoshan 3 wood is 43%, and then you have the Leaf by Oscar Maduro, where it's full flavor, but it's not necessarily full body.
Yeah.
And then you have a stronger whiskey, but not too strong, say like a Maker's Mark cast strength, and then you pair it with like a La Conquista from Gran Habano. And that's, you have a lighter to medium body, but you have a sweet cast strength whiskey, but it's not too hot. It's around like 115 proof, and I think that's that's where you need a balance. I think one needs to be high, one needs to be low, and then that way they can meet in the middle.
Well, let me summarize that in another way of speaking, Matt Stiles, if you're still listening. My answer would be, again, the question is, how do I determine what I like and how to pair with my favorite bourbon? You watch or listen to the Bourbon and BS podcast on a weekly basis.
There it is.
And you learn from us and you see what we're smoking. Take advantage of the deals that our sponsor, Tinder Box at Easton.
Because you do ship.
We do ship. But I agree with Jake, though, on top of that. I mean, this is kind of like, all joking aside, doing some research. Because, I mean, that's like, we're in the age now where you can you can, look up what the bourbons, like what the characteristics are, and if you agree with what they're saying as far as the palate. And then the same thing goes, I think it's very relatable to the cigars. That's why we're doing this. One of the reasons that, tobacco, you have the tobacco taste and you have the oak and the grains. They're very much relatable as far as flavor profiles. You see a lot of the shared description words as far as what the flavors are. You see a lot of similarities and a lot of repetitiveness between the two industries. So you can do that. You can go into your local tobacco store. A lot of times people working there are interested in both, or at least there's people in the cigar stores or lounges that have that, and just learn from others, just like you got into, because the follow-up question is to Matt and to anyone else out there, when he says, my favorite bourbon, and he's new to cigars, picture back to when you were new to bourbons, and how did you determine what are your favorites? Trial and error, and I just see someone commented there, with Kylie said trial and error is how I did it for whiskey, head to a place like Louisville that offers whiskey in 1 ounce pours, Delilah's in Chicago has the best selection and atmosphere I've seen. So find out where you're at. Best way to do it with bourbons, if you're going to learn about that, is go down to Bourbon Trail, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and then with cigars, you just start trying stuff. I hate to say online is a good place to do it, but they do have, as long as they're rated good as far as the sampler packs, check them out, try a bunch of stuff, and do your research like we're doing with the Leaf by Oscar. We've had it now for several years in the shop, but I still have to look it up where it's coming from as far as the makeup and everything else.
I think to go to both your guys' points, I want to simplify it even more. And it's not just listen to the podcast. Obviously, that's a go-to. But, for Matt, call a shop.
Or just message one of us.
Yeah, message one of you guys. Buy 10 cigars.
Yeah.
You get 2 mild, 2 mild to medium, 2 medium, 2 medium to full, 2 full.
Yeah, you get the whole
10.
spectrum. Yeah.
You get the whole spectrum. Smoke them, obviously separately from one another, but don't drink anything with it yet. Get a taste profile of the cigars, the cigars that you like. Then do tastings with whiskey separate from the cigars. And then use your own taste profiles, just like the book you have, Jake, for, it's got the flavor wheel on it and your tasting notes. You can do the same thing with cigars. I know that they're out there. I've got a book on it. You can make notes on it.
Yeah.
Do the same thing, and then experiment, trial and error. Go from there. All right, well, I liked this cigar. It was more of a mild to medium body. I'm going to try it with this because it's got a similar taste profile. Try the pairing together, and it could work. It could not.
Yeah.
That's our claim to fame right there. It's just one big ass wheel.
It really is.
Doing a quick save here,
All right.
everyone. But we're going to go right back into it.
Yep. Yeah, we could totally just do a major wheel, and it's like all these different things, and sell this like it's like 50 cigars and whiskeys together.
I just think it comes down to listening to people, educating yourself, but it is very, very much important, very more important that you actually smoke and learn yourself. So I got another question if you want to go from this list or you want to pull up some. Do you have some in mind?
Well, and this was a question earlier that I had on my personal page, but
yeah, go ahead.
So the question is like if what's the best whiskey and cigar pairing that you've had?
Oh, that we've had. Okay.
Well, that you've had, or like whatever. And like to Matt, I think that he should really get like a 5-pack of do like a 5-pack of like 2 BS Gold, a big gold, and then a big silver and a silver Toro. But I think the best cigar and whiskey pairing that I've ever had, to be completely honest, is the BS Gold Toro and Eagle Rare. I mean, if you're looking at like kind of like not a budget, but like just a good thing that's going to not break the bank, a good pairing.
Yeah.
I mean, the BS Gold's $9.85 at the shop.
Yeah.
And then you have Eagle Rare that's sitting around like $31.80 in Ohio, but most states is $35.
Sure.
So call it like you're sitting around like 42 or whatever, and I mean, you have a great pairing, and you can enjoy the evening.
Yeah. Dustin, do you have one in mind that is your favorite, that you go to, or favorite that you've had?
The BS Gold. I mean, it's
everyone here is a homer.
If you never had it, people, it's an amazing cigar. It's amazing.
It really is, and I tell
it's medium body, it's complex, it's all Nicaraguan tobacco, and it's got Brian and Steve's name on it.
All right.
And it says spirit and focus. So
It has a hell of an aroma to it too.
oh yeah. You know when someone lit up BS.
That was the first thing. I lit one up and hanging out with my brother Brad out on his patio, and he walked outside and he goes, "God, that smells amazing." I'm like, right?
Yeah, it's very aromatic.
It is, and so the BS Gold, hands down. I like the pairing with Eagle Rare that Jake mentioned. I would probably have to go with one of two things: either a Woodford Double Oaked, or you'd have to go to Fido Easton and get their barrel pick of Elijah Craig.
So basically, if you're the best combination, you have to be in Columbus, Ohio.
Right.
Clearly, the cigar and whiskey mecca of the world. Columbus, more specifically, Towns Fairway at Easton Town Center.
Basically, I've never had a BS Gold not pair with anything that we've ever had.
So I'll answer the question different.
Willow.
Yeah, I love Willow stuff. I'll answer the question differently. I would say pure pairing, one of the most effective pairings that I'll say that is interesting. It's not necessarily a go-to, but as far as favorite pairing to broaden my horizons, I'm not a big peaty guy, so we're not talking about bourbons necessarily here, because we had the Scotch on was the Lefroy 10 that Brian had brought in. Brian Joyce, the owner of the Tinder Box, he had brought in to celebrate something. I forget what we were celebrating. It's years ago, and I wasn't a big fan of it. I don't care. In case it says Dublin, yeah, sorry. But it's something with, I had the original My Father cigar with the Lefroy, and I didn't care for, like, when I drink a very peaty or smoky Scotch, especially the peaty, it almost like just like the spot, like around the spine, my back like tenses up. I just don't.
Really?
Yeah, it's just like something doesn't agree with that flavor. It's almost it's not like an allergic feeling. It's more or less just like, oh God,
it's a weird.
Yeah.
If you never had peaty Scotch.
But I tense up, and so that was the whole thing where I smoked My Father with it. And I will tell you what, going back and forth between the Scotch, the Lefroy, and the My Father, that really, like, I had started enjoying the Scotch. I enjoyed the cigar, which I do like that cigar as well, but it really brought out a lot in both. So memorable experience pairing something is definitely that one right there, because I agree with you guys. Smoking BS Gold, smoking a lot of medium body cigars, and with a lot of bourbons, a lot of whiskeys, they kind of complement. It's more up to the whiskey in your palate as far as whether or not you enjoy the pairing.
Yeah.
But I do want to remind everyone as you talk about this, is that we talked about this earlier on in the episodes, way back. We're at 52 weeks now, so we're going back first 10 episodes. When we talked about pairing of these things, what does pairing mean? It doesn't always mean very complementary. It's more or less, you can also have that where they both stand alone and you enjoy both.
Yeah.
And they're not interfering, they're not hindering the other one. So as far as a pairing, everyone goes straight towards this brings that, like, it tastes so well together. Sometimes I think the contrast is a very beautiful thing as well, where you can have a standalone whiskey and a standalone cigar going back and forth, and it's almost like, you go from, eating your steak and going to the vegetable. They both can stand alone, like asparagus and then like a steak. I love that pairing.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's not like I take some of the asparagus, like I don't take the asparagus on the fork and then put it, eat steak with it and eat it at the same time. Like I'll do that with like potato and stuff like that, but I enjoy that because the flavors are going to be standalone enough that they do complement each other.
Absolutely.
Without combiing the flavor notes.
Flavors, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so let's flip gears for a second. We had a really, really good question on, I did on my Dustin sent this, right? Or Steve did. I'm sorry. It said...
One of us.
Yeah, how do you determine when someone... We're going to get deep here for a second.
Life topic.
How do you determine when someone is no longer deserving of your help?
And that's from Eric.
Yeah. Goldhaber.
Is there a follow-up to that? Or is that
No, that's it.
That's the whole thing.
That's it.
That's a great question.
I mean, we can take a second, because that's something like... It's deep.
I go with this. So and Eric has, we know Eric real well. He's been on the show before. He has an interesting way of phrasing things. I don't know if he means it to be like pointed or if that's just the way that his brain thinks. But the word that sticks out in that question is deserve.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you what is it? How do you determine
someone
no longer deserving
of your help?
Deserving is that's a subjective thing. I mean, definitely. I mean, that's up to you because if they've crossed you and they constantly hurt you and they're not a friend, then obviously they don't deserve your time. Now,
Right.
if it's a friend, which I think is kind of what he's alluding to, like you've tried to help this individual, you've tried to assist them, you've tried to get them out of jams, you've tried to do all this stuff, and then he's determining that now they no longer deserve it. I would say the only thing with those choice of words, it would be something where they consistently stab you in the back. They are actually hurting you, not just ignoring it and going down their own path, which might be what I think he might have been alluding to, is like, hey, how do you know when you can't help that person anymore?
When enough is
because
enough.
well, just because they can't help themselves.
Well,
You try, and they literally just don't listen. And so instead of just continuing to beat them up about it or try to do the nice way of doing it, then the more direct way of doing it, and all this stuff, you're trying to break through to that person. But if it's someone does fire back and push you away and all that stuff, I don't think they don't deserve your help anymore. But it's like at some point you do have to, in my opinion, walk away or take a step back and say, you know what, I've tried, now it's hindering my life and bringing my life to a standstill, so that I've tried, but now it's hurting my life, and I don't see, it's hindering me from excelling or growing forward, and you're basically just a weight that's actively, not just passively, but actively keeping me at a standstill in a bad place.
I agree with you, Steve. I look at it as two ways. It's interesting because on one hand, I think it becomes, when you're thinking about if someone is deserving of your help, right?
Yeah.
I think that most people that listen to us, and us three that are sitting here, are helpful people, and if anyone that we cared about would, if they needed us to call to action, we would. And but I think in most of our lives we have experienced a situation where you're trying to help someone and it becomes repetitive to the point where, at least for me, I start asking, okay, I've helped these people do this time and time again, whatever it was. But when, in my mind, I kind of ask the same question. Well, so they asked me again, like if they could help me, or if I could help them with this, right?
Yeah.
Or if they needed help. Well, what happens when you start thinking, I'll add another question in the mix. What happens when you start thinking, well, if I'm helping them, am I actually hindering them more because then they can't figure out for themselves? Because people need to grow, and if you don't fail, if you don't make mistakes, then you don't learn and you can't better yourself. So
Sure.
I start asking myself, so if I have a situation where I'm starting to feel, I think it's all about feeling of whether you feel like you're getting taken advantage of, whether you feel, I normally feel like I get to the point where I'm like, well, I don't think I'm helping them very much anymore if I just go through with them with this and stuff.
Yeah.
And I gave them the tools. Like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. Right?
Correct. Yeah.
And I that's the way I look at things. Where I think to a certain extent, once I feel that, I say, hey, I've given you the tools. You really needed to pay attention. If you didn't, then you're going to make a mistake or fail. But that's for the better of you. And I think people should really look at situations like this that way. On the other hand, you have something where you were talking about, Steve, with the what'd you say again about the? I can't remember.
I don't know which part you're talking about.
What was your main point? I'm sorry.
I think it's just exactly what you said, though. It's about being.
I had
your
another
call.
point though. I don't have my notebook with me tonight.
It's your call, though. Like it's totally up to you. It's subjective.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what the point is that you made, though.
If they're being actively or if they're negatively impacting you, or they're holding you back from growing, and it's just weighing you down. There's an anchor.
Yeah, and then on the other hand, like if it's someone that's hindering you, like
I'll look at this. So I'll let me jump in with that. Is that if you've got, put it from a financial standpoint, right? This is, I think we have someone that would have a follow-up question from the employee standpoint, but from a financial standpoint, if I have the ability to, like, hey, I'm in a bind, I need to pay my rent, and you you know that they're spending their money on something else. They're a friend or someone that's really close to a family member. You know they're spending their money on something else. They're spending money on cigars and whiskey, right? Yeah. But then they come to you and they're like, hey man, can I borrow like $100? Because I'm short on my rent, I'm short on my car payment, whatever it is. I need to pay something off. And you're like, you know what, yeah, that's fine, no big deal. You're gonna pay me back. Whether or not they pay you back, that's almost a moot point for me, right? For me, it's, does it keep happening? Yeah. And you're like, hey man, like, this is the last time I'm gonna be able to do it, because I gotta be honest, I know you're like, I see you drinking expensive whiskeys, or you've got this car that you don't need. Like, you have a $800 a month car payment, and you're telling me that you can't make your rent by $100 again. Like, yeah, sell the fucking car. Stop buying that extra bottle. Stop going to the bar every night. Stop. You got like 100 pairs of shoes. Like, you can only wear one at a time. Like, calm the fuck down. You know what I mean? But if they keep coming back. That's where. I don't know about. That's why I don't like the word deserve. I like, it's like when you have to cut that person off.
Why?
Because I'm the type of person that if someone crosses me, and there's people that have previous relationships, friendships, whatever it might be, businesses, like, right, 2 men in a truck, right? For me, I got fired, and it was a mutual thing at some point as far as not being happy with the other party. But I still now will like comment and like on the social media and reach out to those people, and I'll support them and say that it's a great business. I have no ill will towards them.
But that's easy.
It's not easy for a lot of people, and the same thing with like exes, or a lot of people, like if they cut ties. We talked about that before on the podcast.
Yeah, we have.
If you sever ties, some people will just sever ties. If someone that was important in my life, no matter what they did to me, and they called me for help, I'm still gonna do it. I'm still within reason.
I'm the same exact.
But if it's a consistency thing, and you just, like, to your point, that the horse to water thing, if you take that horse to water, and all that stuff, nowadays it'd be one of those things where you just have to basically take them to a vet and enter an IV of some sort of hydration, because if they won't drink that water, they're gonna die. But you can only do so much, because you have to take care of yourself first. You have to grow yourself first. And you have to be strong for yourself first, so that you can be that person for other people. As soon as that starts going away, whether it be like lending money, like Ray is saying right now, based on that analogy, whether it be your health, your personal health, your mental health, whatever it might be, as soon as that starts diminishing and you can no longer be strong for yourself first, you can't help that other person. But I don't think deserve is always the right choice.
One rule of thumb before like Dustin goes, I think just as simple as can be, if you're second guessing yourself, you probably shouldn't do it. Like, if someone asks for your help and you're asking, well, should I really do this? You probably shouldn't do it.
No.
Well, to your point earlier, it's like, how can you do it? Is there other ways you can do it? If there's like a homeless person on the side of the road, and it's like, I can give them money, and the stereotype, they're just going to go blow it on something, whether it be scratch-offs or booze or whatever it is, and it's like, or you can give them a sandwich. Yeah. It's like, how do you help that person?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's where, Steve, your point, you said, you don't like the way the question is worded as far as deserves.
I kind of don't like it. I just don't.
That's where it's essentially two different questions. We read it as, how do you know when someone isn't deserving of your help? But at the same time, a lot of people are saying, when do you know when someone doesn't need your help? And that's where I think some of the analogy gets kind of, I don't say misconstrued, but the leading a horse to water is a perfect analogy for it. Jay.
Yeah.
And you can help them on that way as many times as you want. If they're not going to drink, they're not going to drink.
Yeah. And that's where the employee standpoint, I think, is a little more cut and dry. Obviously, even if you're an employer or a manager, you have someone you brought up, you give them the tools. That's one of those things that we talked about. Is either that you don't have the capacity for the tool belt, you don't have the right tools in it, and then you as an employer didn't give them the right tools. But if you give them the right tool belt and they still can't do the job, they're either choosing not to do it, not to use the tools, or they don't have the capacity to do that. They're in the wrong position, or you haven't given them the right amount of tools or the right tools to do the job.
Yeah.
And that's not just, obviously, it's metaphorically and otherwise, but I just think that, when they don't deserve your help is if they just constantly go against what the company policy is and what you're expecting of them.
As a business.
From an employee standpoint, I
was just about to mention that. Like, I was thinking, once we talked about this, I was thinking about, like, Corey and I's relationship, where I bet that he, and that analogy actually was brought up by him, and I know that he thought that way about me. But it was one of those things, exactly what you just said, Steve and Dustin, where it's like, well, he thought that I had all the tools, but I didn't want to drink the water because I was done, right? Like my mind was done. And being on the other hand, right, we're talking, we're playing devil's advocate right now. I think that I needed to fail. I needed to be very what's the word I'm looking for?
I have no idea. You're saying S's now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Susceptible?
Yes, that word. Susceptible to failure, and I needed to be desperate. I needed to get to that point to look for other jobs that now have led me. I enjoy my job now, and it's taken 6 months. So I think that the simple thing is what we're basically saying is like if you're feeling weird about it, you probably shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And even if you care about the person, it needs to be one of those things where it's like, hey, this time I'm gonna let you
figure it out on your own.
Yeah. Because I've given you the tools, I've led you to water, now it's your turn to drink, now it's your turn to use the tools, and we're gonna see.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So next question. We can talk about that for
I think we
full
should
topic.
hit the ones on the Facebook Live while they're fresh.
Yeah. So this is from Tony. How difficult has it been to come up with fresh ideas for the life topic section of the show? And what are some of the things you guys what are some of the things you guys go to when you need some inspiration for new ideas?
You want me to go? I'll go.
Whoever, yeah. Throw it out there.
I think we had this last time, and I think it's definitely. I think this will be something. Anyone that is doing something creative, this is an issue, right? And I think that when you're trying to come up with topics like us, I mean, it's really one of those things where we think about, well, is this relatable? Is it something that Steve and I and the guests can talk about?
Yeah.
Can we talk about it for a while? Which my opinion is we can talk about anything for a while.
Yeah.
And I think it's always going to be difficult, but the way that we've done it and our inspirations that we've done it is either through like other podcasts that we listen to or something that I know at the beginning what I was doing when we were talking about topics was that I would think about something that I know that I could probably talk about that I know that's relatable. So it's either something that and it doesn't have to be negative, but in my mind, it was something that either like bugged me or a problem that I thought that could be fixed in the world. And I thought that brought like a lot of different, not necessarily the topic that we went with that week or the next week or even the week after, but it brought a lot of different mindsets to us making topics for the up and coming week. And there was a lot of times and there has been a lot of times where I've said something or Steve has brought up a topic and the other person switches it to something that also involves what the other person said.
Yeah, there's a little bit of brainstorming.
Yeah, and that's what it really, really comes down to. But to answer Tony's question, I think that every week has been difficult just coming up with topics, but it's good. It makes us be
It's
us
kind of
be
our version
better.
of a writer's block.
There is.
Each week to an extent, but I think a lot of it stems from, like you said, Jake, it's, what's going on in today's world, but at the same time, what are things that, any one of us are going through, or maybe we've got the guests already scheduled, and maybe it's something they've got going on, or something like that. We've had, I forget your buddy's name, we did Brain Damage.
Yeah.
You
try to get some sort of an expert on that.
And that's we get the guest and then we pick the topic.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll get the topic and then we'll pick the guest
Because we know that then the guest can talk about it.
Exactly, but at the end of the day, I think one of the biggest things is we're always open to suggestions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As far as topics, we're always putting it out there. If you've got a topic idea or something that you've got going on, in your life that, you may not want to talk about, but you'd love to hear us, bullshit about it, by all means.
Yeah,
Send it to us.
I think we do. Like, I still want to do like a Valentine's Day one coming up. So there are
Yeah.
holiday ones. We did the New Year's. We kind of did, or offshoots of that. We've done, Christmas, Thanksgiving. We've done, things that happen in our lives, like with my, my dad passing and stuff like that. We talk about that. Father's Day, Mother's Day. Some of these holidays on the calendar, and then there is the guest part. Not to repeat too much, but sometimes we'll come up with an idea, and then actually we'll spark a guest idea as well. But I will say, as someone, I don't know if Jake, you agree, but there is, to Tony's question, I feel like I am the one that is the version of, like in Eucharist, stick the dealer. Like it gets down to basically like a Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, and Jake and I even work together every Tuesday, but it's one of those things where it's like, I'll send out the topic for the discussion, and like it was recently that, just because with Jake, trying the finding this job place, it's kind of like, I've got more of a steady day to day, and Jake was going up and down with everything, and it's like, kind of, oh, yeah, sorry we didn't talk about it more, and it's like, there is a little bit of stick the dealer, and the same thing goes with like the whiskeys. I think it's stick the dealer sometimes with Jake, where I'm just like, what do you want to do? And he's like, I got something in my bar, and I'll bring that. You know what I mean? So there's all sorts of different ways we come up with the topics, but it's definitely a team effort, and it's
I think
it's coming from
more
all over,
times
but I think,
than not, a lot of the topic, cigar, and whiskey is finalized and or thought of on Tuesday evenings.
sometimes, I mean, we do plan out a bit. I mean, it's just we get in the mode of like we'll plan a whole month, and we had like what month? I forget what month that was. It was probably like this November.
October through November.
We had it all planned out like
December.
a month in advance, and we sat down, and then life happens, and then it's like, oh yeah,
Holidays
the
happen, by the way.
podcast is in 2 days. Like we don't have a cigar, a whiskey, or a topic. Like what are we doing? We don't have a guest either, so we figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I like it that way, and I think that, to be honest, like when Steve does like kind of stick the dealer, it's like kind of not unnerving, but it's like just, well, what can I say really? Like it's like, I'm not gonna say no, because it's like it's the only thing that we can do when it's in like the Wednesday afternoon.
Idea coming up.
Yeah, and but again, it's a lot. It comes down to a lot of brainstorming.
Absolutely.
Really.
Did you have another question?
Yeah, I was
You were looking for something.
I was looking on my personal stuff, and I think that if your Wi-Fi would work.
It's literally broadcasting this right now.
I know
I don't know.
it's odd, but so we not going back to the we're gonna have a lot of questions about cigars and whiskey.
Of course.
But we had a good question from my buddy Rick that comes in sometimes. He lives out in Utica, Newark area, but he said if you could choose one type of cigar and one type of whiskey for the rest of your life, what would it be? And we had this on the last one. I don't remember what the hell we said, but I'm sure it's changed.
I know what your answer is going to be.
What?
BS Gold and Eagle Rare.
Nope.
Really?
That's where I got you.
What is it?
What is mine?
Yeah. Sure.
BS Gold
If I
and
could, if I could have one cigar and one whiskey for the rest of my life, it would be a Padron 1926 anniversary, and along with
Natural Maduro. Do you have a size?
Maduro.
Okay.
And I would like a Boone County Justin's House of Bourbon store pick with that.
There you go.
yeah.
But
It wasn't Eagle Rare. It had to be a Boone County pick.
Yeah.
actually, no, I'm sorry. The
shit.
the 12-year Bell Mead that I tried at Matt's this past weekend,
Take
that has blown my mind. That was better than Boone County, Eagle Rare, all of it. Like,
Really? That's saying something.
But it's still MGP. It's still
That's
MGP.
saying
It's a
something.
12-year MGP.
For now.
Yeah,
MVP's running dry.
So, yeah.
Dustin, how about you? Pair it.
Well, considering I've not had a Padron yet, I've got a couple in my
I was
humidor.
gonna say, I know you got them.
I've got a couple.
Fucking smoke it.
Oh well.
Jesus Christ. Does it taste real good in that humidor?
It does. It looks great every time I open it.
All right, so what?
It's our next shirt.
It would.
Does it fucking taste good in that humidor? How's that taste in that bottle?
Yeah.
It would
Back when we said
probably
Bourbon
have to
Fields
be Willet 13 year. and one of the Cuban farm rolls, the Monsdale.
Oh,
The
that's
Monsdale.
a shop roll, custom roll.
Yeah, the custom roll Monsdale.
Yeah. Well,
it's a good one. Good choices.
I want to hear what Steve's got to say. I always like hearing what.
Yeah. I mean,
Can't be
more
don't go
whiskey
weak with
heavy
it.
options.
Have something there.
No, the whiskey would probably be Balvenie 21 year.
Very nice.
Not Buffalo Trace.
If I was buying it, Buffalo Trace. if I was supplying my own supply, that wasn't the question. If I could
just
have,
one, no money,
if I could
nothing.
have,
No
yeah,
money,
if
nothing.
if I had it being supplied to me.
Yeah.
If I had a helicopter dropping it off at a deserted island, I was getting hammered drunk.
Balvenie 21.
Get it by the
Balvenie
crate.
21. Cigar. Thing is, I haven't drank that in so long. It's just one of my favorites that I just never
We need to
treat
try
myself.
that.
You know what I mean?
Try that.
I got an empty bottle in there. Might be a drop in there.
I ain't gonna taste it.
Cigar wise, Jesus. I would say.
Kicker.
What's that?
So here's the kicker.
There's no kicker. It's just, I mean,
We're asking the cigar expert. What's your cigar for life?
No, it's not cigar expert. It's just, I'd say because of the work we put into it, I would probably say the BS Gold.
Toro
Ooh.
or Robusto?
No, probably
Well,
Toro.
Toro?
Yeah.
Because Robusto's freaking good too. It's just not long enough. It's
That's
amazing.
what she said.
No.
Got it. Bingo.
But I do like that answer about the Monsdale from Club Havana.
Yeah.
And also Hector Luis's farm rolls. Those are some of if I go back down. Or when I go back down
those
to
two,
Cuba.
the Partagas Maduro #1.
Yeah,
Those
those are good.
fantastic.
But what's the next question here?
I've got one from Eli Fuhrer. Do you like whiskey flavored cigars?
Oh, I did see that. That's an interesting question.
No.
Huh?
No.
He's answered.
Just
I
no.
I don't care
Just
for
no.
whiskey flavors. I don't care for infused cigars. I don't.
I think
I wanna
I've not
taste like
had
tobacco.
a whiskey flavored one. Now I
Yeah.
had a rum dipped cigar and a cognac dipped cigar.
The Gurkha?
No, they were actually house cigars from a shop down in New Orleans that
Oh, cool.
Kathy brought back for me when
Very
she was
cool.
down there. The cognac one was good. Had packed quite a bit of a spice to it, but it was good.
Yeah.
The rum one was phenomenal. It had a lot of sweetness to it.
What brand?
I think it was Cigar Factory, Cigar Company.
Alright.
Was the place. Now I think I sent you a picture of it.
Yeah. Okay.
But
I like our
Jack Daniels.
yeah, I like our Jack Daniels they're a 6x60 cigar that is at the Tinder Box at Easton, and it's infused with Jack Daniels. And actually, when I first started coming to shop after I smoked the BS, that was one of the things that I wanted to try.
Yeah.
And when I first started smoking cigars, what got me into cigars was whiskey, and I think that for someone that is wanting to get into cigars that drinks a lot of whiskey, I think that's the right way to go because it's familiar, right? And I started doing the Maker's Mark when they were still available, and actually Matt said that they're still available down in Kentucky at places.
No, we carry it. So basically, it says we have it in the stores. They don't have the predominant band is no longer Maker's Mark.
Oh, okay.
So there's some sort of I think it still says Maker's Mark on it on a secondary band, but it's the bourbon cigar. Ted's Cigars makes that, and they always have. So it still comes in a very similar package, but there's some sort of naming rights, and I don't know if they did that in lieu of the FDA regulations. I don't know if they did it because something happened between them and Maker's Mark. I don't know, but they do have it where they just don't have it saying predominantly Maker's Mark.
Regardless, I think that's the right way to go if you're looking to get into whiskeys or get into cigars if you're a whiskey drinker. But I like our Jack Daniel's cigar at the Tinder Box. I like the Maker's Mark one. So I'm just going to say yes for those that are wanting to get into cigars that don't already smoke cigars. If you already smoke cigars, I think you should try at least one, like the Jack Daniel's one that is at Tinder Box at Easton.
Yeah.
And the problem with those is they're so soaked with Jack Daniels that
They're not soaked. Don't give it a bad. They're actually infused.
they're infused, but they're just
we
very
keep them very moist.
yes. And I think
High humidity.
I let mine sit out and dried it out, and it was amazing.
really,
Yeah, our good buddy
Ryan.
Phil Davis did Eagle Rare infused. They were good. But I think that tobacco, like, because they're done with HHs, right, at the Tinder Box?
It's it's proprietary.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, okay. But they're good. Anyways. Yes, I say yes.
You do enjoy it.
I say yes.
Mark says, watching you guys from New York, he says.
I don't think that's the way he said it.
It actually does. It says new, and then it's spelled Y-A-W-K.
Very nice.
Oh, yeah, he did say it like that.
Amazing.
Questions you guys have? My phone's recording, so
yes,
what else you got?
One moment. I'm sorry, I was not prepared.
Jesus. Someone asked, is it cold in there? Yes.
Very, very.
My feet are...
freezing.
Well, yeah, they're starting to go into that numb phase. It does say 44, so we are still getting better.
Oh, Nate asked, our good friend Nate Hale
Yeah,
asked,
I was going to ask that one next.
Do you pick the whiskey and try to pair the cigar, or do you pick the cigar and then pair the whiskey?
I think this goes with the picking the topic piece.
Yeah, it's different every week, but I mean, there's, like, for this one, Dustin, because he's back on doing this, he picked the pairing that he enjoyed before, so that was the Leaf Maduro and the Auchentoshan 3-wood.
Yeah, well, we had talked about, I had mentioned the 3-wood a long while back about, doing it. It could be our first Scotch, kind of an intro into it. And, I thought, what better way than, the last episode of the year. And, then we could have gone, full round with all whiskeys. We've done bourbons, we've done rye, we did an Irish whiskey, we did a Japanese whiskey, and, now we, do a Scotch.
Right.
And so, we've done the full spectrum of the major 4 or 5 whiskeys that are out there. And then, I wanted to do something that, the leaf, the Maduro leaf was the one that came to mind because obviously, I have that memory of it, and that's one of the gloriousnesses of cigars and whiskey is, the memories that you create and have when it comes to smoking cigars and drinking whiskey. So when I mentioned those two, and I always thought it was a fantastic pairing when I first had it. So I wanted you guys to try that and experience that as well.
So it's good.
What do you think, Steve?
As far as that, I mean, it's just basically, we've
just pick.
It's a crapshoot sometimes. In fact, sometimes, like I said,
fine.
well, and the reason I like it honestly is because I do enjoy, much like we were talking about earlier, is like, how do you know? When Matt Stiles asked that question, how do you know? You try different things. So I mean, it really is when you don't have necessarily, we're not drawing inspiration from other blogs, anything really as far as pairing stuff. It's what we either know we like, or if Jake's got a bottle, or we know what we're drinking, and then we pick a cigar to go with it. But it goes to the other extreme where it's like, again, I don't even tell Jake. There's been plenty of episodes where I don't tell him where it's coming from as far as the cigar.
I think that brings up a great point.
And he just is like, all right, so I'm like, what whiskey do you have tonight? He says, I have this. He's like, what cigar do you have? And I was like, I don't know. Or I'll be like, yeah, I've got this cigar. And we're just like, okay, see you in a couple hours. And then we go through it.
Yeah, I think that brings up a great point to where, and I hate to answer a question like this, but this is the actual truth, is that I think most of the time that it is actually a crapshoot, but that's part of the whole mystique of like what we're doing. And I think that that's why I enjoy this kind of stuff so much. When you're trying a different cigar, you're trying a different whiskey, or you're trying a whiskey that and you're trying a different cigar with it. It's just about really discovering what you like and what you don't like, and that's what I truly enjoy about it. I think it's something that when there's something that you don't really know that much about, and you're just trying to experience it, and then you really, really enjoy it, it's a much more plentiful experience than it is when there's something that that is going to be great together. And there's days that I have that in the cigar shop where I know I have planned out like what I'm going to smoke in the cigar shop, and when I'm working, so I bring a whiskey for the evening that I know that's going to taste well with that. But then there's other days where I just let it roll, and that's basically what we do with the podcast.
That's right.
So most of the time.
All right. So next question from Eric Black. when you drink alone, do you drink better or do you bring the better stuff out with friends? And I'm gonna say, I don't know where this dog's going.
The answer is yes.
Yes. Yes. What?
Just all the time.
Do you drink better? It's a one or two. It's a multiple choice. You said yes.
That's what I meant. It's just like one.
How bad were your ACTs, man?
Wow. Jeez.
All right, multiple choice.
I mean,
A, C, D.
It's A. It's all A.
I'm just gonna circle everything. Actually,
All
Y for yes. All right. When you drink alone, do you drink better or do you bring out the better stuff with friends?
Dick.
I'm just giving shit.
It's a 2-part question,
Yeah.
but for me the answer is yes. It's yes to both.
You think it's like subjective?
Well,
or it's in the moment?
So you just always drink good stuff?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you always drink good stuff. I'm not saying you only drink, decent stuff. I'm not saying you only drink well stuff.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, you see where I'm going. It's, whiskey's meant to be drank. And yes, I have bottles that I refuse to open right now.
Okay.
Right.
But whiskey's meant to be drank. It's meant to be enjoyed.
Yeah.
I will, I spent a little penny on this bottle because I wanted you guys to enjoy it. And I wanted us to talk about it. I want other people to know.
I'm excited to try the Boone County that he got. Dustin's first Boone County, man.
Yeah.
And his pick. And it's a Kroger pick.
It is.
Yeah.
And, I wanted you guys to enjoy it, and I wanted to tell everyone else about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I love about bourbons. And, when I have you over, Jake, or when, Steve is coming hanging out, or if I have someone else, over trying something, I want them to, hey, I'm going to pull this bottle out. Hey, you really need to try this.
Yeah.
Like, especially if I have it open, hey, you need to try this. And I tell them a story behind it or something, or something that goes with it, or hey, this is what I know about it, or hey, I remember when I had this, and and maybe it is something where it's if I crack my Boone County pick, maybe it's that, or maybe it's the Heaven Hill 6-year that they discontinued, or hell, maybe it's this ancient age 10-star that's $20 for a gallon.
Do you drink that by yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll drink it by myself, or if I'm feeling crazy, I'll pop open the Auchentoshan, or my Kathleen's batch that you can't find anymore, or it all depends on the mood and what sounds good to me if I want to have it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I have people over, it's all in what they want to have and what they want to try, and if I say, hey, if they're big into trying whiskeys, if they're a whiskey drinker like myself, and have that appreciation. So I'll pull down a bottle and say, hey, you need to try this. It could just be Woodford Double Oak. If they've never tried it, that's even more, I get more passion and joy out of that, because then I can have them try it, and I get the appreciation of it, not only from me having it, but from them trying it and them telling me what they think about it.
That brings up a great point and I think that Steve, literally that's why Steve, I think, doesn't have, the bottles that you used to, because I think that when we're talking about this kind of thing where a friend comes over or a friend has a bad day, right? Like, not too long ago, Dustin said he had a really bad day. I had a free night. I think it was a Friday night. I didn't have to work the next morning, and I brought over an unopened Boone County 12-year store pick, and he was like, well, you didn't have to bring that on my account. We don't have to open this. And I had that one and 3 more. I didn't really need to open that, and that was a special bottle to me because 1, I really like the whiskey, and 2, I could sell it for an astronomical amount of money for what I had paid for. But it's one of those things. It's meant to be enjoyed. It was made to be enjoyed, and I knew it would brighten Dustin's day. So that's why I brought it over, and we really, really enjoyed it. And then on top of that, it's one of those things where it's just about trying.
We tried the Blade and Bow after that, which we found was NGP, and it was really cool because we tried the Boone County, and then when we tried the Blade and Bow shortly after that, and we had something else to drink before that, but it tasted extremely similar, but you could tell it was a much lower proof.
Yeah. Which
was very, it was a really cool discovery, and that was just part of the experience of it. And I think that's where, the whole yes is the answer to that.
Yeah, it's everywhere, really. I mean, it just depends. And I know, again, that's
Maybe
not
it is
a firm... it's not a firm answer, but yeah, like I have daily drinkers that I think that are good. The problem is that, I mean, just take for instance, we have Buffalo Trace, just regular Buffalo Trace sitting on the table right now, and that's one of those bottles that I think, unfortunately, is not, it's rare kind of to find anymore, but it's not super rare to an extent that you're going to find it every couple weeks.
Depends what state you're in.
Yeah, it depends on what state you're in, and if you find it, I think that you should have, if you have a whiskey collection, you should have a couple daily drinkers that you enjoy, that you know it's going to taste good every time, very consistent. And then you buy bottles, and then when you're hunting and you're very extremist, I would say, about like the whiskey collecting and stuff like that, then you have your special bottles. And then when someone comes into town or someone that comes over for the first time and wants to experience something, that's when you break out something that you're willing to part with and that you know that you're going to drink. You don't always need a special occasion to open a very nice bottle.
We talked about that on the podcast before.
Yeah, and it just really depends. It's like when I went down to, and I hate to keep rambling, but it's like when I went down to Matt's this past weekend, like I tried a 7-year Willett Family Estate bourbon. I tried that Bell Mead Liquor Barn 12-year store pick. I tried the 30th year or the 30th anniversary Booker's he was given to by an employee before it was blended. It was a 14-year uncut Booker's 30th, which was amazing. I tried a 1978 Kentucky. It was in a like the Kentucky Wildcats decanter, so on and so forth. And it's one of those things where you bring out the special bottles. You don't need a special date or anything. You bring out the special bottles when you see fit, because once again, it's your collection. It's for me. I think it's when I bring out the special bottles. When someone's come over, I want them to try this. I want them to experience it because I want to see them light up like I did when I first tried it.
Yeah, you get just as much joy of you trying it for the first time when someone else you know and you care about is trying it and appreciating it, even just remotely the same as you.
So to answer the question about being alone and being with each other, it depends on how I'm feeling, and we've talked about that, where, you know, if I'm feeling some sort of way and I've already tried a bottle, I already know, and there's sometimes where I like I grab the bottle and I pour it and I'm like, damn it, that wasn't exactly like how I was feeling, right? But that's just how I am, and I think, again, it goes back to you should have some daily drinkers and you should have some bottles if you want to start a whiskey collection that you should have for when people come over.
Yeah.
We saw some feedback on here about, it depends on the friend, which I think there is something that goes along with that.
Yeah.
You know, Ray says, he something about his mom visiting. It's like having my mother here for a month and not allowing her to drink my good single malts because she wanted to add Coke. So again, there's some sides of that we didn't really talk about. And, you know, I look at it as there's plenty of people, you know, you say you're in some kind of way. A lot of times for me, I like to share I'd share whiskeys with people before I'd share some of the cigars that I don't want to no longer have. You know what I mean? Like some of the Cuban cigars in there, like I've shared them with some people, but it's not like I don't want to like deplete something where I can't get it again. So it's almost like a restraint that I have for myself. I have as well, you know, for when friends are over there.
You sometimes have to.
It's like, to your point though, it's your collection. It's up to you what you want to do. Some people will share a bunch and they overshare, and then they're bitter when they don't have it anymore. You know what I mean? Like we had that at some of the bourbon meetups. You know, you had people that got all fucking pissed off because they bring a super rare bottle and they're like, man, it was gone in like 15 minutes. Like because it's a super rare bottle of something that you are literally at a meetup that are filled with enthusiasts that want to try that.
Yeah, and there's only 23
So don't get upset. Don't fucking bring it if you don't want it to go away. That's my point.
Yeah.
So with sharing with friends, I think it's great. I don't know.
We have one question.
Twist.
Yeah, go ahead.
On it, he said, "Take question. Do you feel better giving a gift or receiving a gift?" That was his twist on the question.
I appreciate both of those
I really
sides
do,
of it, honestly. Everyone, you know, like my gut reaction is, you know, I feel better giving a gift because I really do, because I am able to help someone or able to treat someone it does make you feel good. But then on the other side of it, there's very few things better, I think, than someone doing something because they obviously care about you.
Yeah.
And sometimes, more often than not, sometimes for me, it's they are doing something way above and beyond, or just like, dude. And then you mentioned earlier, you don't have to do that. Like, come on. It's like, well, they know that. That's the common response back is that I know I don't. I want to.
Right.
And I mean, there's both sides of the coin.
Huge gift for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, by the way.
Well, it's like Matt. I mean, Matt Stiles, once again, like when I went down there this past weekend, he gave me he had like 2 or 3 so bottles left of that barrel that he had got. And
anything for one of those.
well, he gave me a full bottle.
What?
Yes, to bring home. And like I didn't need that. Like I brought down the stickers that we had made, and you know, for those that don't know, like Matt Stiles is a good friend of ours, and he he was given a barrel, and we actually featured it on a podcast not too long ago about it was really there was rumors that it was a bullet distillate, but it was a Four Roses distillate, 4 bullet, whatever. But and he got this barrel, and there was some whiskey left over, and he filtered it out, emptied the barrel, and he came up with like 2.5 gallons. Well, he had 3 or 4 so bottles, and we sampled it. Well, I went down there, and he gave me like a full bottle, and I was like, Matt, like, it's one of those, like you just said, Steve, like you don't need to, but you want to when you know, that's the key. When you know that they're a special friend, that's when you break out the good shit. It doesn't mean that when you're alone, like you don't drink the good stuff, but it's better to be enjoyed with others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, again, I mean, I look at the whole gift giving thing. I think there's both sides of the coin, man. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if I had a rough day, if I had a very good day, and I come home and I want to I will to Dustin's point, I enjoy it that I can have a glass by myself and I'm treating myself. Or I smoke a special cigar by myself. Bobby Crow says, at the end of the day, I'd rather everyone enjoy it. You could die tomorrow and enjoy life to the fullest. To that, I'll say, good way to look at it. Also, you do that, you might live tomorrow and you're fucking out of whiskey. So
nothing's worse than being out of whiskey tomorrow.
I tell you what, either you put it in your will, or you tell someone that, you know, that's the way I want to go. It's kind of evolved, is that, you know, at my viewing or whatever, you hopefully it's an open casket. There's ability for that. If you guys want to look at me, that's fine. All like weird and, you know, doctored up. No, yeah, exactly. Go to the cemetery. But no, the bottom half, you know, where the
Green Lawn Cemetery,
hips down. That's where the collection is going to go. So the fact that I may want to hold on to certain things, cigars and bourbons and stuff like that, I do appreciate what Bobby's saying. I'm just kind of giving him a hard time. But there is a side of it where you can't blow all your money, you can't blow all your stuff, because you may wake up tomorrow, and then you got to take care of yourself and continue to enjoy your life tomorrow also.
It's a double-edged sword,
I think. You know what? I'll share it with everyone after I die, because then you guys can all fucking drink it. And you can smoke the cigars. I mean, I can't do it anymore, so I will be friendly with it, but I'm not going to be overly liberal with it, so that I can still enjoy it. When I come home, I get tired of it. There's times where I don't want to open anything because they're bottles that I'm not in a mood to open up, you know, something where it's harder to get, or it was a gift. The other night, actually, Dustin, I was drinking that Russell's that you'd given me.
What'd you think?
I finally cracked that. That's like a quarter to a half gone after, you know, I didn't really have much else here to drink. I'm like, you know what? Raving about it. Might as well do it. I feel like having some drinks tonight.
What was it, a 10-year or single?
It was a store pick.
It was a single barrel.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, I bet that stuff was
very good. So we can do that on like the half that's left. I won't drink that now because, you know, I want to I cracked into it because I felt like it. But sometimes I don't even have a drink because I don't want to. You know, it's like, oh shit, I don't want to drink any of this stuff. And there's other nights where I just say, you know what, I feel like having a drink, and I don't have any daily drinkers here.
Yeah.
All right, I'm dipping into this one.
So, quick question. Byron Barnes, our elder at the shop, asked it. In Mississippi, they have a 10-year Eagle Rare for $30. Is that a good price? I assume he's talking about a bottle, and I say that is an amazing price.
Yeah. I told him it was fantastic. Bring me one.
10 year is just the Eagle Rare that used to be labeled 10 year, correct?
Well, it's still labeled 10 year, but it's on the back, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, $30 is a great price.
Yeah, it's a great price.
Yeah. Yeah, and as Ryan also says, buy it and bring me one. Barnes, I'm on it for one too. I got $30 in my pocket for you right now.
question.
I think there was some earlier on.
I like this one. If you guys could have any guest on, who would it be?
Ooh,
that's from Nick Craig.
That's a very
good question. Man,
very good.
That would be that's a fantastic question.
I'll tell you one I'm looking forward to is when we get Eric Espinosa on here.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
So Eric Espinosa, for those that aren't cigar smokers, they're either watching for other reasons or they're bourbon or whiskey guys or girls. Eric Espinosa, we've smoked some of his cigars, Espinosa cigars.
And
we've
the
had the Murcielago, I think, but
actually,
he's fantastic. Not only in the cigar industry, but he's a fantastic person and very, very friendly. You know, I've literally only been in the same room as him probably a dozen times, if not, probably about a dozen or so times.
Yeah.
Because he's in Miami, but we've had him, and the hospitality showed. Brian and I, when we went down there to blend the BS Silver, was off the charts. I know I told that story before on here, but
no, that's
but just having a conversation with him, I talked to him again last week or the week before, I forget, 2 weeks ago, and he, just we're talking about business, and then all of a sudden he's like, I said it, you ever watch The Sopranos? I'm like, no, I never got into it. He's like, dude, you gotta get it. Bro, he says, bro, you gotta get into it. Then all of a sudden I get this whole sales pitch on why I need to start going back, and he's like, you got HBO? Oh yeah, I got HBO. It's all right. So I need you to watch it. We're gonna talk about it next time we talk.
Yeah.
So it's like having that personality on the podcast. You're gonna get a lot of knowledge in the cigar industry. He knows a lot about whiskeys. He enjoys it, and talk about any life topic. He's got you.
Yeah, there's actually a couple that I think would be amazing that I would really like to see on here. But one that I was actually thinking of that kind of stood out. I think that Sylvester Stallone would be fucking cool.
He would be fucking killer.
And I think that
swinging Arnold up there too.
Yeah. Well, and Arnold too. But Arnold's not a whiskey guy, whereas Sylvester Stallone is like a cigar and whiskey guy. And I think that this would be just to hear the stories, because I've met Arnold for a second, but I just think Sylvester Stallone would be a badass character to be on the podcast.
You ready?
Sure.
Go ahead, buddy.
Jimmy Russell.
That'd be cool.
That'd be cool.
I thought about Freddie Johnson too. But
yeah.
Jimmy Russell would be amazing.
When I talked to Freddie, he was all for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was all for it when I went down there in June. But I think Jimmy Russell would be fantastic. Freddie would be phenomenal.
Who's Jimmy Russell, Dustin?
Jimmy Russell is the master distiller at Wild Turkey.
Yeah.
He's been around for quite some time.
He's almost 90 years old.
Yeah. Just had a birthday not too long ago. Had a hell of a cake. But, and his son Eddie, I think having both of them on there would be really killer.
Yeah.
But I think in all reality, just a master distiller from, one of, your major distilleries, whether it be Wild Turkey, Jim Beam, Heaven Hill, Buffalo Trace, Woodford.
Yeah, bourbon experts.
Some of those guys. You get that bourbon expert, I think it would be even killer to take it to that next tier. You get Eric Espinosa on, and you get a master distiller on.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
You get a cigar expert and a whiskey expert. You dive deep into both realms. And then especially if they're both willing to stick around and hang out for the topic.
Yeah.
We'd have to have a TV series it'd be one series and one season, but it'd have to be 10 episodes just for one podcast. Because the stories...
we would have to start...
Stories. If you had Eric Espinosa
and
then Jimmy
instead
Russell.
of starting at 7 p.m., we'd have to start at 7 a.m. And it'd be...
We'd have to have some camera crew or something.
We got a couple, someone says Nicolas Cage, which I think would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
Ray Chester says Mike Rowe, best guess. I agree with that, but then he throws out there just to compare the voices, which is funny, but...
yeah. Or the guy from Allstate.
I think Mike Rowe would be fantastic, though, because if you ever listen to what he has to say about a lot of things...
from Dirty Jobs?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Look him up, man. He's very inspirational. And then, you go back, that leads me, other good guests would be some of the guys that have amazing podcasts. It's like Joe Rogan. Love to have Andy Frisella on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Doug Ruffalo says Sam Lucia. He's a bigger name in the cigar industry as well. He backed off a little bit, now he's back on, so he'd be great. He's fantastic. He's been to this Smoking Tent event as well.
So I've got a question to kind of go with, what you were talking about, Steve, because it ties into what my answer would be. But we had talked about it it was a question that was brought up on a previous podcast while you were on vacation. We did the episode of Brian's.
Yeah.
Best cigar story. Your best cigar story, most memorable, hands down, takes the cake.
That's a good one.
For the table.
That's a good one.
Go ahead.
Jake, I'll let you go first, or you want me to go first?
I mean, I'll go. Here's what people. I'll start with this. Here's what people don't understand is that
I feel like I need to get a notebook for you so you can jot down your.
People don't understand the camaraderie that is in a cigar shop, and I think you won't understand it until you walk into one and just observe. And that's what I discovered in the Tinder Box. That's what I've discovered in a couple other cigar shops, and anywhere that I really go and venture off into a cigar shop. Is there's tons of stories, there's tons of people, and in the fact that you can sit down, and most of America doesn't allow themselves to sit down and actually talk to people, that's the greatest thing. And when you do that, there are some amazing stories that come about. Mm-hmm. But my best or most memorable experience was so it was last year. It was probably around this time, and it was Brad Grimsley. We've had him on here twice. Kevin, he's been on here, and it was Steve and me, and I believe one other person.
It's after hours. It
was after hours, and we were just listening to blues, Zach Brown band, drinking whiskeys, smoking cigars, and we're all just talking stories, right? And then I don't know what abrupted, but then Steve does the worm across the shop floor.
We were talking. I think what came up is like we were talking about weddings and stuff like that, and I said that's my go-to move at wedding.
And then Brad was like, "Well, why don't you do it?"
Yeah, I bet you can't still do it. And I'm like, "Well, all right."
I remember this video. It worked,
and it may not be like the best story that I got, but that was definitely the most memorable. It was just the fact that it was like 2:30 in the morning. If you've ever met Brad, he's just a hoot to be around. He's the life of the party. And when you have Steve, me, and him around, it's definitely going to be a party. And it was just it's definitely one for the books. I'll say that.
Dustin, what you got?
So, mine would be, I just started to get into cigars. I just moved back to Columbus, beginning of August, 2017.
Yeah.
2017. And it was around October, November. You guys had the Prime Rib event, Prime Rib dinner event, and you had Eric Espinosa there.
That was a good event.
I stopped in at the shop a time or two, and not a whole lot. But I started to kind of come around a little bit.
That was just when we all met, really.
Yeah, it was when we first all kind of met, and I got to meet Eric Espinosa, and I got to talk to him a little bit. For me, that was a huge thing, and I thought, I was on fucking cloud 9. I got to meet not just someone from the industry, but someone who actually creates cigars in the industry, and not only that, but some fantastic ones nonetheless.
Yeah.
And meeting his personality and the way that he is, it really pulled me in even more into the cigar world, and it shed a lot of light on the cigar community itself. And it's always been one of those memories of mine. And I remember glancing back. I was scrolling through Instagram photos to find something else, and I remember scrolling and stop, and I stopped once, and that picture was there, and I was like, that was a fan-fucking-tastic time.
Sure.
And that's just one of the ones that stood out the most to me. But to Jake's point, it really is the community and that camaraderie that is the cigar community.
Yeah.
And not only that, but even the whiskey community.
Yeah.
You get a lot of that with a lot of these groups and these people that you meet. And it still holds true to me, and I love it because it opened the door for me to a whole new world that I thoroughly enjoy and, you know, and greatly passionate about. It's really helped me to be me.
That's great. That's great.
What do you think, Steve?
It's hard to really knock down to just one. I mean, for me, you know, as
I feel like it's got to be something about Ryan.
No, no. So I've mentioned some of the stories before where, you know, like the Cuba trip. As far as so, I'm more cigar related, I guess, not just cigar shop. But I mean, the Cuba trip, the fact that, you know, of all of that, one of the most unique experiences, and we talked about it, was out at the Royal Guyana farm, and just a unscheduled visit, but because Mark had these connections to the Don Carlos and, you know, the Fifth Avenue store from previous visits, we go out there just, he wants to say hi. The last time that he had been down there with Brad and Aaron and I forget who else, they were turned away, no visits, no tours.
Yeah.
And ours, for he wanted to just say hello to Don Carlos, ended up in a 2.5-hour visit with Don Carlos, Ivan, the tour guide, you know, / translator, and then Hirochi Robayana sitting down. We had Cuban coffee. We had a farm roll from their personal collection. We had El Presidente beer and conversation about everything Cuba tobacco, everything about traveling back and forth, about Nicaragua, about our store, about stores down there. 2.5-hour conversation with a 5th generation Cuban farmer. They've had that farm going since 1845.
Wow. And
that was after all the years and you know, smoking cigars, enjoying, you know, being in the industry, but just to have that kind of
it's like 150
knowledge.
years. That's crazy.
It's a lot. So that was a great experience. The trip down to Miami for me with Eric Espinosa that I mentioned previously, for the BS Silver project, and then also expanding with Casa Fernandez for the BS Gold project. That was a 3-day trip, 2 to 3 day trip, where we, you know, flew in, stayed at this beautiful hotel, and it consisted of 2 like cigar factory and then also a cigar warehouse with 2 guys that are very in the industry and working on our own cigar.
Yeah.
And then also that trip included, you know, Brian and I sitting back while the girls went out with Eric Espinosa's wife to have drinks, and we stayed back at the hotel to, you know, basically have the pool to ourselves, smoking cigars and talking about what we wanted to do, and also trying some of the prototype cigars. That was amazing. But when it comes down to it from a consumer standpoint, I will say my favorite, and I can't recall maybe one specific night, but back in the late 2000s when Thursday night was the night that basically at Fido, which is the pub next door from the Tinder Box, Ray would be there, Ray Chester, that's when I was hanging out with him. Thursday night, you'd have on the Fido patio in the summertime, just randomly on Thursdays, it just became the night. We would have anywhere, like if you went up there, you'd have 2 people, 4 people, up to probably like 15 to 20 people. And if you guys, you know, for those of you who know Fido, right outside the front door of Tinder Box, you go to the right. At that time, we would have like up to probably 6 to 8 tables all pushed together and just lined up with all the guys and girls even. I mean,
Yeah.
like there were girls there were significant others, a lot of like even some of the female cigar smokers, and it was like every Thursday night, and that was something that, you know, to Dustin's point about becoming part of the community, that was where you just had people ranging from their 20s all the way up to their 60s, guys, girls, mostly cigar smokers, not always. We had, you know, our regular servers, and they all knew us, and they knew when we were coming in. And it wasn't always the greatest for Friday mornings, because sometimes it would go until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. We closed down the bar on a Thursday.
But it's Friday.
But you had people that were going into jobs, people that weren't working. You had people that were like, you know, Ray was a high up at, you know, limited brands, and he'd be out there. And I mean, it was just unreal. And friendships that came from that. So all different aspects for sure.
So we had a question from Eric Black from Tuesday night when we did the live. Finished whiskey versus non-finished whiskey.
Now explain that to the listeners and viewers that don't know what that means.
So tonight we're having a finished whiskey. I mean, basically, it's an Auchentoshan 3 wood that was aged in ex-bourbon barrels for 10 years, and it was finished in Oloroso sherry casks and Spanish sherry casks. So it's one of those things where you have I don't want to say a pure product because then it kind of demeans the finishing product, but it just means that you have something that is either, a Scotch or a bourbon, and then you fit the purest that it can be within legalization and within its own realm, and then you finish it in something else to add flavor into it, really, without adding pure, just like flavor extract.
Yeah, I can't answer that one. I can't think of examples of either.
I think the answer is yes and no.
Let's do with
So,
Can you imagine?
It depends.
I'm gonna fuck with it a little bit.
Subjective.
Yes.
Can you imagine being in a relationship with this guy?
Wow.
Like having like that, like, oh my god.
Can I wear this dress? Well, yes and no.
Do you like this dress or not?
Christ.
Should I wear this outfit or this blouse? Yes.
Yes and
No, just
no.
yes. Just yes.
Yes and
Well, should
kind
I
of
wear both or like what do you?
All right.
Can we keep going?
God damn it. Wait, what do you think, Dustin?
So some
Yes and no.
and no.
God damn.
Fuck you guys. That was good. That was
Saying,
good.
it'd be miserable.
That was good. When you're here, Dustin, I don't get all this.
And also, Kath, if you do listen to this, you are a saint. Go ahead.
Have you seen his bourbon shelf?
I know.
She's
Yeah.
more than a saint.
Go ahead.
But
Ray says Dustin is on the fence this evening.
yeah, shit hurts. Sam Lassie is watching.
Nice. Very nice.
Hey, what's up, Sam? You were just
Hey,
mentioning.
Sam.
Yes.
But some whiskeys are really great when they've been finished in separate casks. But there are some that kind of it takes away from the actual flavors. Now, granted, the ones that I've tried, I've thoroughly enjoyed. Angel's Envy is good. It's finished in port wine casks. You don't really get a whole lot in it. It also just kind of depends on how long it's aged.
Yeah.
In those casks because it'll pull more or less from it.
Yeah.
I think with the Auchentoshan, because it's in two separate sherry casks, but it goes over 2 years, I think it pulls a lot of those flavors from it.
Yeah.
So that's why you get a lot of those fruity notes. Something like a 1792 port finish, which I know, Jake, you've tried.
Yeah.
I've not had the pleasure of trying it because you finished off the bottle.
There it is.
But I've heard really great things about it. I know you raved about it. Whereas you get something like the Basil Hayden Dark Rye, which is finished in a port wine barrel, but they also add some of the port wine to it.
Yeah, which is interesting.
It is.
That's interesting and good, I think.
I thought it was really good. I know, Jake, you weren't a big fan of it when I tried it because you were there.
I'll try it again.
Yeah, but
I like it now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but I think it just kind of depends. There are more bourbons and ryes and distilleries that are flirting with that idea and trying it. Woodford does it. It's they're double oaked. They finish it in a separate, heavily charred oak barrel,
And that does count, people, as a finished
and
whiskey.
Finished whiskey.
Okay.
And it's fantastic. If
It
you
is
like
good.
Woodford, you would love the double oaks.
Yeah.
To me, it has a lot of banana nut bread notes to it.
It's really good.
It is really good. So I think, personally, I guess the answer is I like finished because I've not had a finished one that I did not like.
Okay.
But I know, having had conversations with other people who have tried finished whiskeys that were not a fan, especially when it comes to scotches,
Yeah.
the answer could be no. So
Yeah.
I think it all depends on how long it's aged.
That answer shit.
So yes.
Yeah.
Well,
shit.
You may hate me.
my
for-
answer is
least I
why.
said
Yeah.
My answer is why.
I mean-
Circle that shit.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of be like Dustin with this.
God.
Where,
Damn it.
It's
gave you two.
Yes.
So okay, so
Yes.
full
Too much.
disclosure, my main answer is all non-finished whiskey.
All right, moving on.
That's no.
Oh.
I wanted to explain the fact here. There's two different things where you have finished whiskey that I think that there are things that are great and that there are things that are not. But what finished whiskey does for the industry, when you look at it as an industry perspective, is that it's creating a different experience, and that's why like Angel's Envy had done the port barrels.
Yeah.
They were trying to create something that the bourbon industry had never seen, right?
Yeah.
Much like when they started doing single barrels and small batches, and then you saw straight rye, and you saw like more added rye, and then finished whiskeys. I think it's a great thing for the whiskey community because it adds different flavors into it without it being something that is unnatural.
I got you, yeah.
And it's not like like Jim Beam Apple where you have like their regular 4-year white label one and they add like artificial, or they say air quotes natural apple flavoring, right? And it's still like a great product, but it's in blatant terms, it's fucking with the pure product. And that's where I go back to like the old school authenticity of the thing, where you have a mash bill, you have a certain percentage of corn, rye, or winter red wheat like Maker's Mark, and then you have the barley. You make it, you distill it, you age it, and then you see what comes out, and that is your product. And I absolutely love that. But on the other hand, I think that finish casks, along with other things in the whiskey industry, are creating good aspects to push the whiskey industry and to push these greater flavors that really may create a different experience for all of us. But I stick to my point where I say non-finished whiskey.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's funny hearing you guys talk about it, especially you, Jay, talking about it. It's like, that go back to that whole whiskey infused or whiskey flavored cigars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I know not all finished ones have flavor added to it, right? But I guess that's what you were also including. You know, I think about like some of like the Jim Beam apple or the honeys and all that stuff. And, you know, there's purists that would just be like, no, get out of here with that. Kind of like cigars. You know, it's like, I want the unfinished or whatever. But again, that's why I don't know the terminology with that, me personally, finished versus non-finished. So I try to listen to what you said, but I'm trying to relate it to cigars a bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Cigars would be like the fire cured.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or infused.
That's a good point. Or infused.
Or
but what about like
Easton bourbon barrels?
Yeah, but that's
finished.
But see, I don't know, because like the Perdomo Habano, like that whole collection, they've been doing that for years. They didn't really boast that until it got trendy, and now they say, you know, finished in bourbon.
But it was always
But that's
great.
where in the cigar world,
But I don't get that. You know, I don't know.
But your answer would be yes and no.
No, I honestly, no. If I had to, no, because someone was asking me. No, if someone was asking me to pick, I'd say unfinished in the cigar world.
Yeah. You mind if I ended on like a final question? Or you got another one?
Well, we had one actually that was something where it was if you could have the podcast anywhere, where would you pick?
Good one. Do you want to go first?
There's a lot of places, you know, and before I answer that.
One in there too. A favorite episode.
Oh, that was a good one too.
Oh, I did see that. Okay. Well, we got 3 more.
I am
this
liking
one
up the Montecristo Classic, the Special number 3, which is like basically a Corona size.
Yeah.
It's from our sponsor, Altadis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we appreciate that. I know Paul Waller was on earlier. He's the one. And he's also confirmed, both he and Josh, but just congratulated Paul Waller on his promotion. And
really?
he responded back, thank you very much. Thanks for the Tinder Box for all the support and everything. And he can't wait for this episode. And he said something about
anymore.
He basically said that you know, he wants us to be assured, Jake, that the sponsorship is on for next year as well. So
hell yeah,
We'll
folks!
have to approach him
hell yeah
with our new sponsorship options for this year.
Very nice.
But no, I think, you know, there's a lot of times. What I'll say on that location, there are some wish list things, but it's some of those experiences that I just mentioned. I wish there was, like, we kind of joke about it a lot of times. I wish we could just set up the microphone right now because we're having that conversation. That would be
on the spot.
Great for people to listen to and include them in the conversation.
Well, it's like you guys being down at like the farm in Cuba.
Well,
like
that's
Robaina. Like,
Robaina, that's where I was saying is like if we could have had a podcast with Don Carlos, Hirochi, Ivan, Mark, Brandon, and myself, we had a microphone there and we had a camera rolling for Facebook Live. That shit would have just
it'd be like a 10-hour podcast.
Well, even if it was just a 2.5-hour episode and people were watching this stuff, I mean, they would have wanted, like, there are a lot of people that are cigar enthusiasts that know about some Cuban tobacco, and I'm saying it's better or worse because I appreciate my times with Eric Espinosa, and like I'd love to, have Sam Lucia on, like we were talking about, and I'd love to be down at the Perdomo, farms or the Oliva farms. I'd love to be in Nicaragua doing this, but based on what I've experienced, I'd say if I could take it anywhere, it would be Cuba, because the majority of our listener base is based out of the United States.
And they're cigar smokers.
And they're cigar smokers, and I look at it as that even if you don't know, like you guys maybe have never smoked a Robaina, you don't know anything about it until I said something about it, but that episode, being down like in Cuba on their farm, which was founded in 1845, and we're sitting around in rocking chairs.
Yeah.
And one of the rocking chairs had the wood carving statue, basically, of Don Alejandro, who had passed away recently. And just to be able to capture that for not only my memory, but also to really educate the people that don't know about Cuban tobacco, because they're United States. And it's not just the novelty of Cuban tobacco, but it's more of just the appreciation of what goes behind that. And the fact that this is 5 generations in and talking to them. And just hearing some of their questions to me, like Hirochi asking me about the cigar store and asking me, like when we talked about the BS stuff, and he was asking, I said, AJ Fernandez, AJ, he's working on a Nicaraguan project, Hirochi was. Just that whole conversation just was all over the board. Yeah. And it was very educating, not only to myself, but a lot of people that listen to us. And there'd be a lot of people that may find a new interest in going to Cuba and seeing that. And then also that would hopefully stem towards people wanting to go to some of these other countries and not just going to the cigar store or just, ordering online. It's actually get out there and experience the cigar culture. Yeah. Not just, and there's nothing wrong with it, but not just smoke in your garage and do it with your neighbors that neither of you guys really know much about cigars. It's just, my neighbor brought back a box of Cubans and we smoked them. It's like, that's awesome. Yeah. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
Right. No, and I agree with Steve. I that's my dream list, and I hope that within the next year that I'm able to go to Cuba and with Steve, it'll be hard, but I think if both of us went together, it'd be a blast. But
it's on my bucket list.
Yeah. I think for me, what I would love to see is the fact that if we went down to Buffalo Trace, and it's funny that, again, like Steve's the cigar guy of the podcast, I'm the whiskey guy of the podcast, and it's great, I think. I love our dynamic. But if...
they're slowly melting together, too.
Slowly, I think we're there.
No, I'm saying, like, you're getting more into cigars, I'm getting more into the stuff, too.
And I think if we could do the Cuba trip, and then right after we went to Buffalo Trace and did an Eagle Rare pick with our group of friends, Steve and I, Dustin, we did we bought a barrel of Eagle Rare for the podcast. Nate would be there and the guys from the shop, and we all collectively tasted, sampled, did a podcast while we were sampling, had a set of different singular microphones and was talking about it. We had Freddie Johnson that was talking to us about the whiskey and the barrels and where they came from.
A lot of knowledge there.
It's just the stories. It's about the experience. It's not about the tobacco. It's not about the whiskey. It's really about the experience and the knowledge and the stories that come from our passions, really. And it's really about what it boils down to is the experience. And I think if we were able to do that and to hear the stories, if you think about it, like Freddie Johnson is a 3rd generation Buffalo Trace employee. It used to be Ancient Age, and then it was OFC, I think to hear all those stories that his dad and his grandfather had about Colonel E.H. Taylor, Elmer T. Lee, Colonel Blanton's, and to hear his dad talk about where the honey barrels were in the distillery. I think that would be like one of my bucket lists, and where I would love if we could have the podcast like actually in the Rick House and like have the Facebook Live and everyone, you know, watching as we do it. I mean, it's one of those things that I think is much like, you know, I can only imagine like how I would feel at, you know, the Robaina farm. You know, it's something that it's a different world, and until you experience it, you don't really know.
Well, you're documenting is the thing, is what's cool.
Yeah.
You've been down to the distilleries, you've had some conversations with these people, but then they turn into memories and you want to go back. I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, I have a very distinct, fortunately now, of that moment for 2.5 hours down there. That was spur of the moment. And this is an opportunity that this question presents, that almost duplicating that and almost planning that. And then, you know, Jake was the first one that really said, when we were talking about the podcast in the beginning, now that we're a year in, is we're documenting. And we formatted it. You know, we've grown as a podcast and Facebook Live video, but to do what you just said and actually document it for not only ourselves, but then include, you know, like last week's episode, we had 4,000 plus views. I mean, to have, you know, thousands of people actually experience that as if they were there. If we're doing Facebook Live, they are actually there as it's happening.
And we're interacting with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dustin, if you had to pick a place.
So, mine would be kind of
Yes and no.
no.
I messed him up with the Eagle Rare pick at Buffalo Trace.
Because I was thinking about
we all
Buffalo
love
Trace.
it, and it's like
because I mean that's always been a huge dream of mine.
Yeah.
With the podcast is that, but to take it to the next step is we do our barrel pick, but then we feature it at a Kentucky whiskey festival.
Ooh, that'd be a good one.
Kentucky Whiskey and Cigar Festival.
Yeah.
Where we have thousands of people in the audience. We are the main stage.
That's cool.
The three of us can be sitting up there. We're
Wow.
sampling our pick.
Big picture.
Our pick of a bottle.
Big picture there.
And now it'll go longer than the 2-3 hour mark.
Everyone's allowed to smoke and drink.
And Nate's there in the front row in a tuxedo t-shirt, hammering
Damn
it
straight.
on.
Damn straight.
With baby Jesus.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
With baby Jesus.
That's what I'm picturing.
You guys are awesome, man. Yeah.
Woo! You gotta look. I'm all jacked up on Mountain Dew.
That's
And
amazing.
sadly, it's like I'm coming up. No, next week. Okay, I gotta work in this job.
That's our dream, folks, right
He's gonna
there.
bring Masterson's on.
That's our
Nate's
dream.
our guest next
We
week.
just
He
need
is,
paid.
yes.
We just need paid while we're doing that, and we're good.
But we're up there and we have flowing guests. So Freddie comes on and talks. He talks about the experience of picking that barrel with us. We have Jimmy Russell come on, talk about his experiences. We have someone like Eric Espinoza come in and talk about the cigar industry. We have all these different spectrums, and it doesn't have to be where they talk for hours. I mean, obviously they can.
We just have our own seminar and festival for a week.
The Bourbon and BS
For a weekend.
The Bourbon and BS Podcast Festival, man.
Yeah, but
for a week.
But just imagine, like I'm picturing in my head, like we have
dude,
a stage where we're sitting up there, and we're talking about the pick that we did, the experiences we've had, the guests that we've had throughout the episodes, and the cigars that we've tried, and the pairings, going through questions like this, and getting questions from the live audience. Even.
So this brings us to our next point here: is make sure you share this, share the podcast.
We want to do this stuff, man.
Yeah, I want to break the 4,000.
Ooh, Ray, that's
live on stage at the 10.
We talked about that.
I was talking about that too.
Yeah,
that'd be interesting. That'd be the small figure
that'd
of
be
what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I had that in my mind. I'm like, it would be kick ass to do it on the stage at the 10 event. You have 300 people. I'm like, well, fuck, if we're going to do that, take it to the next step. What would be the next step? You mentioned about doing the barrel pick. I'm like, well, fuck, let's do this.
Yeah.
The 10 event won't be at this one because we're going to have a different format if it takes off, for comes into fruition. But I do envision the next time we have a Q&A, we're going to be developed enough that, if I'm running the Q&A type thing, it will be broadcast live on the Bourbon BS so we can actually enjoy having more people.
Will I get to talk?
I mean, in that format, first off, probably not. No, I'm saying like using this platform to bring people into that experience.
Yeah.
That's one of those things.
I was making fun of the fact that Steve is the voice and the face of the 10 event pretty much because he's not really running it, but he's basically narrating it throughout the process.
I'm the
hosting.
MC and the visual host.
Yeah.
So follow up to I think the other question I think was from Bobby Crow was favorite episode so far.
Yeah, we're at episode 52.
We're ending it after this question, but yeah.
Well, you had one.
No, I'm done.
Jake's cold.
You done?
Yeah, I'm good.
No, I want to hear yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with that one, Dustin, what's your favorite episode?
Probably the episode with Brad Grimsley. It was very early on. We had the Kathleen's Bash. We had the Monsdale. It was. I mean, we had
The only episode that I had to cut out 20 minutes of.
Because of Steve and Brad.
Well, between that and
We got passionate about the conversation and the whiskey.
No. I know what you're saying, but what I'm saying is.
Yeah, we got passionate about the
yeah.
conversation and the whiskey, not in that order.
But I think
That
a
was
toss up
funny.
between that and when Bob Burger was on, we talked about leadership and
Yeah,
stuff
that's
like
a good
that. That for me, was a huge thing for me because that's my
Yeah.
career, and
Very good
I
episode.
have a great passion with that and developing other leaders as far as
Sure.
aside from the whiskey and the cigars.
Yeah. I
Jake,
agree.
you?
Honestly, my favorite episode was I did love that episode.
Which one?
With Brad on, I believe it was episode 13 or 14.
Yeah.
And I did love that episode, but the one that stands out to me is when we had Paul Waller here and Josh Bentley.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny
Talk about family.
because
Yeah, that was a good
we
one.
didn't have just them two. Who was the guest?
It was me and Bobby Crow.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
And
so
then Josh pulled up a
yeah,
chair.
so we ended up having 6 people here. Five.
5 on. Paul sat on the side.
Yeah, and but we ended up having 4 and then
Josh couldn't
or
resist.
3 and then 2 off, but about halfway through we stopped the audio and kept the live going, and it was interesting because at the beginning we had asked Josh if he and Paul if they wanted to be on, and they didn't. They're nervous. It's weird.
Well, no, actually, just I want to interject. The whole thing was that Josh wasn't. He just started with Altadis, so
Okay.
with them being a sponsor, Paul was like, "Hey, this is your first week. You'd be a
that's
great
true.
guest." But
Yeah.
he didn't. Because they're a big company.
Yeah.
Then it's like,
They're
hey, you're
conglomerate.
representing Altadis now, and not that you don't represent it well, you just don't know the whole portfolio. So if you start talking about stuff, it's one of those things.
I
That's
still
why.
think that they were nervous, but it's but having us around here, Bobby, Dustin, me. There was 6 people. If there's 4 around of us at the table, and we had
Well, he's
2 in the
saying
back.
5 around the table.
Yeah, but 5 around the
Paul
table.
was
Got
over
it.
here, yeah.
We had 6 people here. Regardless, I
There you
think what I loved about it is the fact that we had 4 people talking on the podcast. We had asked if Josh and Paul wanted to be on, and they said no. And then, like halfway through the podcast, someone went to the restroom, and then Josh was like eager, like he was like jumping out of his chair, like wanting to get into the conversation, and it was amazing because when he jumped in, it just like blew up. Like at first, because we don't talk about it, but a lot of people don't realize that when we start the podcast, when that red light hits and we start this thing,
Yeah.
it's a different atmosphere, and it really becomes a studio, and they realized that. And then halfway through, I could see him in his seat.
Do you remember he got up from Nate just got here a little bit ago. He's sitting over there, and they both were watching. And we did. So he stands up, and I was like, "Hey man, you need a drink," because they were they were smoking and having whiskeys as well. And I was like, "Do you need a pour of something?" And he said, "No. Like, can I actually get in on that?" We had gotten into the
It was
conversation.
amazing.
We had gotten into the conversation about the family, and said,
Yeah.
like, "There's a
We
stack
took a
of
break
chairs
for a
over here."
second.
And I was like, "Yeah, man, pull up a chair." So he gets in, and he just bellies up to the table, and
And he just dove in,
Oh,
and
he
I thought
wanted to
that,
contribute.
and I
Yes.
love Josh's.
I love that.
I love Josh's personality.
I love Josh.
The
You're a
fact that he
fantastic
can
guy.
Yeah.
talk about really anything. He's a great guy, and along with Paul, again, congrats on your promotion.
yeah.
But and thank you for bringing Altadis and getting us the sponsorship. But
He actually was the first one, really, from a corporate standpoint, believe
Yeah.
in the podcast way early on.
yeah, and I think the fact that if it wasn't for both of them, like we'd still be here, but we wouldn't be as good off as we are.
Yeah.
And just you see people that come in and are kind of our small audience in the studio here in the garage, and it's fun. This is why I love like the whiskey and the cigar community, is when you give someone something and you allow them to be a part of this.
Open and candid.
They light up.
Yeah.
And it's a great feeling to say, we created this.
Yeah.
And someone wants to be a part of this. And that was one of the most memorable moments for me, for, besides episode 52, becoming a full year, that was a great episode. So thank you, Josh, and thank you, Paul.
I think it's what Bob Chris said. It's a great feeling to see how everyone interacts. I think it's phenomenal. I love, even sitting behind the camera, being the producer. I love just you watch the guests and you watch how they interact and how they bring themselves into it. And at first, you can tell they're a little cautious in it, a little shy, but you get them. You two do a phenomenal job at making them feel comfortable and literally letting and allowing them and letting them know and feel that, hey, there is a mic there is a camera, but at the end of the day, what are we doing?
Yeah.
We're pouring one more, we're lighting up another,
Yeah.
and we're figuring this out together. And it's all it is. It's just conversation.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah,
I think that's one thing, and I love when you see and sitting kind of on the backside. I've gotten to see that. You see the guests, especially if it's a first time guest. You see them. They're kind of reserved, and you kind of see them. They kind of lean forward, and you see them. And then they start to really open up. Like, all right, now it's going to get rolling.
Whenever we start the intro, whoever the guest is, if they're the first one, they're like, I always notice, like, they're like, oh, okay. Like, they're like, we're in this, like, for a long, and it's interesting because it's, like, us doing this every week, I'm so glad that I haven't gotten used to it, but I've gotten more comfortable with it, and I know that Steve's always been comfortable with it, and, it's just an interesting, this has been awesome for the first year for sure. What was your, like, most memorable podcast, Steve, besides now, of course?
No, it's not. I mean, it's there have been several, right? So again, it's based on the guests. There's been a lot of like guests that I've met through Jake, some of his friends, and then like some of having the cigar reps on have been fantastic. You know what I mean? That they want to be a part of it. Nook, looking for his keys for 30 minutes. Gosh, I love the episode you brought up, Jake.
Yeah.
But I'll say, and I bring it up a lot, and I think there's two that really stand. It was more the earlier on episodes, two that I really stand out for some reason, but the one when we had Eric on and we had the subject of education.
Yeah.
That was
Eric
good.
And Brandon.
And then I bring it up several times because it was episode 2 or 3. It was Valentine's Day.
We were over there.
2 was Valentine's Day.
We didn't even have.
I wish we had that.
Episode.
I wish we had that documented on Facebook Live. But so here's the reason I like those 2 episodes.
We had the table over there.
Yeah.
That's weird.
The reason I like those 2 episodes really is because it was one of those where we were coming up with topics. We were still trying to find our format, right? And Jake and I, it turned into from friendship into like, hey, let's do a podcast, to the episode 1 was, us just like doing a trial run, and became episode 1. And we had Josh Porter and Mike Fry on there. And we didn't know how to do it. We were trying to figure it out. But when we got just to Valentine's Day, was episode 2 or 3? 2. So it went from us figuring it out to the evolution of where we're at today, where like it was like, Jake had his idea of what he wanted to do with me, and I had my idea of what I wanted to do with him. And we agreed on parts of it, and we didn't always agree about what we were doing. But when we did the Valentine's Day one, we did the education one, for me, the reason I think that was some of the more memorable ones is because that was at the end of it, and there were times, because they did go so long, we weren't as used to doing this, like we would end up in more of a inebriated, heated conversation that turned into an argument that then our friendship stood true and said, hey, we're still doing this together, we need to figure it out. But while we were doing it and looking back at it, we were actually doing kind of what we're doing now, and we we couldn't wrap our heads around it.
Yeah.
You know, it was like we were still learning about like what the actual product we wanted it to be, but it was like he fought for some things, I fought for some things, but the reason I like those 2 episodes, I think, is because it was purely when we were coming up with topics early on, we were picking kind of broader subjects sometimes, and he says that I've always been comfortable with it. I didn't know exactly where the conversation was going to go, and when we looked at the life topic part of it, it was something where we talked about Valentine's Day, and there was a lot of stuff that just was easily shared, you know, without getting into details. Yeah, exactly. Dustin raised his hand, but it's those things. And then we talked about education. That conversation we had, you know, we had a guy, Eric, that had gone to.
Was that the episode that Ray butted in and was talking about
millennials? I don't think that was it. No, I think that was
later down.
Yeah, that was later. I mean, but like, was Brandon on that? I think Brandon was on that one too.
It was Eric
so
and
Brandon. You know, that was what I liked about it, because we had a topic. Valentine's Day and romance and relationships, anyone can talk about. With the education, we had just 4 guys. It was you weren't on that one, right, Dustin?
No.
So
That one and then the one after I missed, and after that it was.
You had Jake, you had me, and you had Brandon, and you had Eric. And Eric was more of a tech, like he's an IT guy and very successful, but he took a different path than Jake and I did.
You had the all spectrum.
Yeah, you had Brandon,
really.
who's extremely intelligent, but he was
very well read.
Yeah, well, he's extremely intelligent. I mean,
absolutely.
But he never really finished his degree.
Yeah.
So you had that perspective of it. So you had some guy that was doing the tech thing, and he graduated.
Self-learning, really.
And you had this guy, well, and he also was in college for 7 years, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then you had Jake, who did the liberal arts school and played football, and we talked about that kind of stuff. And then you had me, who was a liberal arts college and had a different college experience. And then after the fact, you had different age ranges. So then you talked about, like, we talked about the fact that, you know, for me, you know, like with the student loans afterwards, and like now in my 30s at that point, late 30s, it was my viewpoint of, you know, is it worth giving a loan of $100,000 to a 18-year-old to try to fucking figure out what they want to do with their life? Or do you go the tech route, or where is it going? And you had Brandon, who's like, you know, you can get that education with a library card if you want to. And then you had Jake with his perspective on everything about how he went to college, because that was the next step, and played football, but at the same time learning stuff. I mean, that's why I like those 2 episodes, because I think those were 2 of the earlier on episodes that really framed where we have gotten to in the relationship between Jake and myself, and how we went through our ups and downs figuring this stuff out, where I think both of us, and I'm not going to speak for you, Jake, but with those growing pains, so that brings me to the point, is that we both were at a certain point earlier on that was like, you wake up the next morning, you're like, you know, I don't think I want to do this anymore. This was too stressful. This is, you know, ruining a friendship, and this is something that, you know, we turned into a Wednesday night where we used to just get together and drink and smoke and, like, you know, help each other out when we had things going on.
Yeah.
To figuring out how to actually put a product out there where 4,000 people want to actually listen to our Whiskey Wednesday conversation while we play darts.
Yeah.
And that's why I like those earlier on episodes, that we push the envelope with each other, so that then we get to this point now where it's extremely rare, like after the episode, we actually just treat it more like a business, where it's like, all right, so we need, like, that topic was good, we went too long, we didn't really have as much to talk about, you know, the whiskey and the cigars were good, but we did, you know, we need to get better choices, or who's the next guest. It's almost like we're constantly moving forward with this now, and the earlier on episodes, we really just kind of learn by, you know, putting the feet to the fire type thing, and just saying, all right, I'll give you a little bit of leeway, and Jake said to me, I'll give you a little bit of leeway, figure it out, and trust each other. And all the while, months later, now a year later, we're at that point where those earlier on episodes where we were trying to figure ourselves out and figure out what we were actually going to put out there, along with how are we going to present the product, you know, the just audio to Instagram to, you know, the episode that Nate was on, where the Padilla episode and the technology,
the catastrophe,
crashed. And, you know, it's like all those things, and you feel that with the cigars and whiskey, and that's where I like those episodes the best, just because they really did frame what we have honed into, obviously at this point, a fairly steady and productive product.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
One thing to kind of, to your point, and then we'll go to Jake's question to cap it off, but the second episode was one of the ones that stood out to me the most, and it wasn't just because that was the first one that I was ever on. That played a part into it because, being on the episode, it was one of those that, I was in those shoes of a first-time guest where I'm like, okay, what do I want to talk about? Like, what do I want to say? Like, how open do I want to be? And then the more comfortable I got, the more comfortable I got with you two. And, that's...
It's called liquid courage.
Well, a little bit, a little
He
played...
already said his favorite episode, right?
A little played into that, but...
He did. I was just thinking that, but... Go ahead.
Are we all going around?
Go ahead.
But here's the thing. So, that was one of those instances
I was
where...
thinking that. I just didn't want to...
It held true for me more that, I realized that you two were one of my best friends, but at the same time,
nice.
I use it as, when I talk to people about the podcast is, how often do you get a group of guys to sit around the table and openly talk about relationships?
You had me at hello.
Like, period. Like, you just don't. And
No, you're right. You're right.
And that's one of those, that's the first talking point I get to. I'm like, how often do you get a group of guys to sit around the table and openly talk about relationships? And they're like,
Fucking every day in the cigar shop.
yeah, but somebody...
But outside of that.
But outside of that, then you get that person like, well, you don't. I said, that's my point.
Yeah. Steve had me add BS. I mean,
that's
typically.
full of it. But that's the point that I make for people who I try to, whenever I talk about the podcast, it's we talk about a whiskey, we talk about a cigar, and then we talk about a life topic, and we sort this shit out.
Yeah. That's been the format of what we want to do.
Exactly.
Ray Cheshire asked, Jacob, someone just gave me a bottle of Jim Beam Single Barrel. Any good? I think Jim Beam Single Barrel is a very good whiskey. I think it's a little expensive for what it is, but depending on what they pay, it doesn't matter. Enjoy it. It was a gift. I think it's really, really good whiskey. It's between, it can be a 6-year, 8-year, somewhere around there, but...
And remember, he's in Vietnam, too.
Good bourbon.
I don't think you're going into a liquor store and finding that necessarily.
No, good bourbon whiskey. So my question is, finalizing this episode, thank you, Dustin, for being on again, and thank you for always, being behind the scenes and helping us with, helping us with the starting and stopping of the Facebook. It's been awesome, and we're not like a major production podcast, but I think we've done pretty damn good for with what we've got and what we've done, and it works. And I think we've created a different way of going about things for podcasts. We've seen a couple things imitated, and
absolutely,
I think it is. I think of it as flattery. So, but I think as our final question, like where, Dustin, you're a part of this, and we're all a part of this really around the table. Where do you guys see this next year going, and what are the things that you think that we should improve on, whether it be the whiskey and the cigar pairings, whether it be the topics, what in your mind stands out initially that we should really improve on to make people enjoy this more?
Steve? Dustin, go ahead.
Obviously, I want to see this grow exponentially. I want to see this become a monstrous thing because I truly believe in what we're doing. I love it. I'm passionate about it. I told you guys time and time again, I consider myself just as much of this as you two are. And, I treat this as my own at the end of the day, every day. Every time I talk about, hey, I've got this podcast you need to check out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're on the podcast? I'm a producer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a producer. I help them together. I'm filming guests every now and then, about once a month or so. And I said, but this is what we do.
Sure.
And I love talking about it, and I love bringing other people into it. Hell, I stopped at Lowe's earlier today to look at heaters and stuff. I was talking to you, Steve, but the guy who was helping, I'm like, yeah, so we're doing a podcast tonight. We do it in my best friend's garage, and he goes, oh yeah, well, what's the podcast? I said, it's called the Bourbon and BS podcast. He goes, well shit, you had me at Bourbon and BS.
Well, hopefully he tuned in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I said,
Price
well, you know,
per
we try you know, we have a whiskey and then we have a cigar. And he goes, well, hell, you have me a cigar. I love my
Sure.
cigars. And he goes, you know, I love my cigars.
Sure.
And
SEGAR.
Amen.
but it was cool because, you know, I went in there just, you know, look, here's maybe something I can have, you know, bring in here to help out for tonight, or, you know, something I can have out on my breezeway when it's not 20 below.
Sure.
And, you know, made that conversation, made that connection with someone.
Yeah.
Because you never know who you're going to talk to. They might like whiskey, they might like cigars. They might not like either of those, but they're intrigued about the life topic. And that's where, you know, I go into, well, you know, last week we talked about negativity. Here's the guest that we had on. But we had him on episode 17, and this is what we talked about. He was a perfect guest for it.
Sure.
And then, you know, I talked about, you know, the second episode, or, you know, maybe other key episodes that could stand out to someone.
Yeah.
And, you know, I truly believe we have something special here that not everyone taps into. You can look at whiskey podcasts, and they talk about whiskeys. You can look at cigar podcasts, and they talk about cigars. But how many of them put those two together, but then also bring in a completely different aspect of, let's talk about life.
Yeah.
Talk about what you're going through.
Yeah.
Let's figure this shit out together. And that's something that is huge for me. And, you know, even last week, you know, sitting behind the camera, we talked about negativity, and you know, you guys made points. I'm like, well, fuck, I need to stop and actually, you know, think about some shit. You know, and allow even me, just being someone who's in the garage every week.
Yeah. You're like the first row of the
yeah,
audience.
Yeah, but not only that, but, you know, even viewers out there, but even myself there's something that I can take home from this.
Yeah.
That we talk about. Even as on here, there's something I can take home from
Oh, we
this.
do every week, I think. Jake
Yeah,
and I do.
and
Just from ourselves.
that's something
Yeah.
I love from it. You know, I would love to go travel and do episodes at locations and stuff. You know, I've talked to you guys about, you know, Genty up at Opa Bar and Grill up in Delaware reached out, you know, to me about doing an episode up there. You know, because he's
Absolutely, yeah.
huge on supporting local people, and, you know, someone who has a monstrous whiskey collection.
Yeah.
And, you know, someone who's dabbled with cigars but doesn't know a whole lot about it, but is willing to learn, you know, who owns a bar, who's hey, come here, we'll figure this out. I got a patio, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And, you know, things like that. And, you know, when I went on the Bourbon Trail and I got contacts, you know, talking to Freddie, even if it was a hot minute, you know, he's like, yeah, you know, I would love to do something like that. You know, I would love to be on. Here's my contact for, you know, get a hold of this person, tell them that I sent you.
Yeah.
And, you know, let's figure something out. And
Yeah.
I think that is huge. And that's my goal, at least for the next year, is simply baseline, just keep it growing exponentially. Keep doing what we're doing, because it is something special, and just keep sharing it. And, you know, we talk about it every week about, you know, the viewers. Hey, please share the videos, share the page, like the page. Please, if you've not shared it, why haven't you? You know, if we had 4,000 viewers,
Yeah.
we should have at least 2,000 shares.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
And that's the thing, because if you think, well, you know, none of my friends smoke cigars or drink whiskey or, you know, anything like that, share it anyways.
Yeah, but that's kind of a controversial thing for a lot of people, because
it is, but look
it's
at the life
portrayed
topic.
as a weird, it's a negative thing for a lot of people.
It can be, yeah.
It can
It
be.
can
I'm
be,
just
it can
saying,
be,
like,
but that's
that's what
where-
we're dealing with.
It
Well,
is,
yeah.
but that's where we focus on the life topic piece of it. You know, hey, if you don't smoke cigars, if you don't drink whiskey, that's fine. If you drink wine, pour a glass of wine. If you drink beer, crack open a beer.
Or if you don't drink at all, it's fine.
Yeah, pour a glass of water. If you don't smoke, that's fine. Tune in, scrub forward after the episode to the
briefly.
life topic, and tune into that piece.
Yeah.
Because while we might talk about whiskey and talk about cigars, because we have a lot of people that are passionate about that just the same as us, there are even more people who could relate to the life topic or have their own point to that life topic. That's something I would love to see, is more people sharing, more people helping us grow that, because that's how we've been doing it.
Sure. You want me to go?
Yeah.
So that kind of brings, you know, you say a lot of big picture ideas. So, you know, being with Jake on the kind of, you know, more business side of it, you know, I've really taken a lot from him, just like you have, Dustin, and I think that there's a lot more we can do big picture. Year number 2 going into this, you know, to build off of my last point of the fact that, we figured it out, by doing.
Yeah.
There was planning, but by doing is engaging my goals going forward. There's several things we've talked about, things like t-shirts, business side of things, right? Like things that we can get people more involved that are enjoying the podcast every week. They want to support Jake, myself, Dustin being involved. They want to support the podcast by, having a cool t-shirt or having some cool things. But I'll say this: I want to grow the sponsorships. Obviously, that's one of the things that we want to do from a business standpoint. Some of the growing pains of this is that initially it was coming out of Jake's in my pocket for the cigars, the whiskey. We get a nice employee discount, both being employees of a local shop that is one of our sponsors. But that was growing into the point where the owner of the Tinder Box, Brian Joyce, said, I believe in what you guys are doing earlier on, and said, you know what, that I will supply the featured cigar every week. I asked him, and he said, yeah. First time he did it, I was like, all right, cool. And the next week, we paid for him. I paid for him again, and then Jake bought the whiskey. And we got to the point where both cigars are actually sponsored now, so there's no out-of-pocket for us to do this. We do have some sponsorship dollars that are still sitting back from Altadis, and that was earlier on from, like we mentioned before, Paul Waller wanted to he believed in us, and he actually said a lot of the same points that Dustin said, is that no one else is really doing this. You're not just a cigar. We as a major company sponsor a cigar or one or two, cigar podcasts that these guys are getting a lot of money because they have viewers, but you guys are doing something different. And that's what we basically cultivated and continue to harvest that kind of mentality. On the flip side of that is I look at the viewers, I look at the people that listen to the podcast on audio, which there's several people that actually reach out while they're listening to the podcast when I post it on Fridays. It's something that I want to prepare our listeners. I want to prepare them better. I want to actually get this more fine-tuned where Jake and I have guests lined up to the best of our ability, and we have the cigars and whiskey lined up. We can do some more that we think are good pairings as opposed to just the crapshoot. So more evolution going forward with that. But getting people involved where we have our guests being able to have the whiskey and the cigar to smoke with us. You all right over there?
I'm sorry. I just read.
Who the fuck is that?
I have no idea.
Scotty Too Hottie.
That's funny. That's funny right there.
Will Ferrell, you need to eat something. Maybe a hot dog.
I came right here
Maybe a hot
from
dog.
work. Sorry.
So, going forward, it's the things that you're talking about, Dustin, it's the practicality of it.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
actually doing the business side of it so that, it'd be great to fucking get to a stage at a whiskey and cigar festival and all that stuff. But it's what I look at is engaging, getting more shares, getting more likes, and then for Jake and I to continue to come up with newer ideas. Ray had a good point, Ray Cheshire, listening in. Some of the topics do overlap. I mean, when you're doing these things, a lot of the podcasts that I listen to, they overlap as well. They overlap as well as far as, like the entrepreneurship. That you can talk every week about entrepreneurship and, being hungry and all that stuff. There is a lot of repetitiveness, and we have some of that because a lot of the life topics, they all bleed into each other.
Yeah.
So for me, though, is we would like to get more guests. We'd like to, we worked on that one time, and Nate helped us out, work on the technology side of it so that we can fuel the Facebook Live, we can fuel the YouTube side of it by recording all this stuff, but we can also fuel the audio side of it at the same time. So we can actually practically say, all right, some people that we mentioned, Jimmy Russell, Eric Espinosa, some of the people we mentioned earlier, they're not in Columbus, Ohio, and we aren't able to, get Jake's new work schedule, to line up with my work schedule, or we have to take the same day off so that we can drive down to Kentucky or fly down to Miami. There's added expenses that if we had better sponsorships, as far as not better sponsorships, but like better financial sponsorships, higher dollars, that we can have a travel fund. All these things that we can actually do that. So now the next step in year 2 is I'd like to see more episodes where people are prepared for it. So that's on Jake and I of basically communicating and planning this a little bit more in advance. And Dustin, you obviously you've been a huge help.
We've been doing that the last couple of weeks.
We have. My thing is that instead of necessarily getting them in the garage, it's part of Ray's point of having more eclectic collection of guests.
Yeah.
It's really, I think Jake and I are both really hesitant about trying the technology side of it to get everything squared away. And now we have a new battle of me moving to a new house, and now it's like now we have a new studio. But I'm saying these are all growing pains for year 2. Yeah. And then we continue to grow that side of it so that from a consumer standpoint, from a listener, from a viewer, they see it as they tune in every week and they know what to expect, but at the same time, just like we don't know, the conversation is still pure and raw and where we just have that honest conversation. And I don't care if we have Jimmy Russell. If Jimmy Russell, who's pushing 90 years old and is a whiskey bourbon expert and has been in it the whole life, that guy is I still want them to have a participation in the life topic, not like, hey,
absolutely,
we're done with the bourbon and cigars, so thanks very much for being our guest. Now Jake and I are going to talk about the life topic. I want to hear from Eric Espinosa. I want to hear from Sam Lassie. I want to hear from, if we were down in Cuba doing that episode, I want to hear from Hirochi and Don Carlos with a translator, talking about negativity.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where you get these experts in these communities and a different feel that we had your buddy who does the meal prep.
Josh Lang.
We talked about his business. We talked about a lot of that health stuff. But then when we got into it, there was more life topic that went into it. And I think you get these individuals that are experts in their own field. There's an interview side of it. There's something that's involved that people can either want to tune into or not. But then we still pick their brain for what people go through because they're people as well. They're not just the expert.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so that's one thing. And part of that preparation to Dustin's point, I was thinking while he was talking about that, is that if you tune in for the cigars, you tune in for the whiskey, you tune in for the life topic. Yes, they interact with each other. They kind of go back and forth at times during the conversation. But if you don't smoke, you don't drink, to Jake's point. You just want to hear what we're talking about that night.
Yeah.
At the very least, my first step is the person that publishes the podcast as far as on YouTube and everything else. You tune into Facebook Live. That's up to you, man. I don't know. I still share it. Well, I still share it when we get into topic time. I still share it when we get into closing remarks. But when we post this, I want to be able to tell someone that if you're not into the whiskey and cigars, just by looking at the description, at an hour and 10 minutes is when we start, we go into the topic.
Okay.
So that they can scrub. So it's just basically catering a more precise product while still retaining the looseness of the conversation.
Yeah. It's funny because I asked a question and I just wanted to hear what you guys had to say and mainly Steve really.
I see how it is.
Huh?
I see how it is.
Well, I mean, it's not that, but it's that's how this thing started really.
Yeah.
It's me and Steve, and then we've had a couple guys like you, Dustin, that's come in, and it's great, and Nate, and I'm going to take the easy route where I agree with both you, and I think that any advice or really anything that obviously within our inner circle of guys that have any influence with this podcast can suggest, I think is valuable. I think what it really comes down to, and I'm a big guy, and I never used to be a big guy on it, but patience really, and I think within this first year, I think there was a lot of times where, at the beginning I was very, in my mind, I felt that we were being too serious, and I felt that, we needed a subject, we needed a guest, we needed a whiskey, we needed a cigar because that's what we wanted it to be about. But I think when you dial things down into it, I've just seen too many podcasts, I've seen too many businesses in this realm. This isn't corporate. This isn't a corporate realm that you fucking add and subtract numbers. It's one of those things where you either do it or you don't, and you see what happens. And I think that us taking risks, like what Ray said about like keeping the subjects and our guests very electric, whether they're cigars and whiskey folk, it doesn't matter if they're willing to be a part of it and we warn them beforehand and they want to be a part of it. I think that would gain us something because then it would add a different realm. Much like Josh, it just helped that Josh liked whiskey and cigars. And that's always the first question that Steve and I ask our guests, that we know that they don't normally dive into that realm. But if they're dealing with something that a local business that we want to support, as well as we hope that they support us, that's our first question is, do you like whiskey and cigars? And that's what starts the conversation. I think as long as that's a given, I think as we push that envelope through 2019 and the rest, our second year, I think pushing the electricity in our guests is going to be a big picture. But along with what you guys both said too, like all encompassing, I think all those things allow us to grow. I think, but my initial thought process was when I asked this question, it's kind of a loaded question, but for me, I think going back to the patience thing, it just comes down to doing what we're doing. It takes time. Great things don't happen overnight, and I think that this is a great thing. When I first started with Max Effort, the reason why I started with it, and Corey and John Fosco and all those guys, is because I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, have I changed my viewpoints about them? To be completely honest, yeah, but I knew it was a great thing, but it got to the point where I knew that I didn't want to be a part of it, and that's fine. But that doesn't mean it wasn't a great thing, right?
It was a stepping stone.
It was a stepping stone for me, but I knew it was a great thing. So this podcast, the Bourbon MBS podcast, is a great thing. It is going to be a great thing. It is going to be well known. But we're within our first year, and I think as long as we stick along our route, which is right now, we've found our bread and butter. If we keep the patience and not try to overthink things and add and subtract and all that bullshit, I think that it allows us to be creative and to create, and that's why we're doing this, and that's why we do it for you, the listeners and the viewers. It's to help you. It's creating a purpose. It's helping us. Hell, there's times that Steve and I say shit on this podcast, and we go back inside, or we're sitting here after the podcast, and we're like, I know at least for me, I'm like, damn, I just like answered my own question that I've had for a fucking year.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's things like that make this podcast what it is. And when we're talking about things to get it better and to make it better and what we foresee in the next year, it's all encompassing into what us three have said. And but I think we truly need to keep the patience and allow this thing to grow in what it could be, and allow the viewers and the listeners to do what they want to do. But we do need shares, people. We do need likes. We do need the 5-star reviews. And I don't care if your grandma says that smoking's bad. If you like smoking cigars, you need to enjoy yourself and be comfortable in your own skin, because that's what I had to do if we wanted to create this thing into something great. Because I know that my grandmother doesn't like the fact that I smoke cigars, but this is something that they can't fathom. And that's not because it's something that they can't recollect with, but it's something that they don't know. And this is what I care about, and this is what we care about, and this is what the Bourbon BS podcast is about. And to end on that, I mean, thank you, Tinder Box at Easton, for providing the Leaf by Oscar Maduro. It was a great cigar. Thank you, Dustin Bovey, providing the Auchentoshan 3-wood. It was an amazing whiskey. What's $65?
$65.99. pushing 70.
And
after
Ohio
tax.
retail, the Leaf by Oscar Maduro's $9.95, $10.70 with tax out the door. You get 15% off within the next week as we walk into our next week. And Steve and I we always work on Tuesday evenings, and that's the best time to come in, really, is to hang out with us. And
Saturday nights too.
Saturday nights too. And
Right.
thank you, Altadis, Paul Waller, Josh Bentley. This past year, and our homemade contract with you and Altadis USA it's been honestly, I don't think we really thank you guys enough. Thank you for the support and the exposure that you guys have done for us, and we really appreciate it with the Montecristo Classic Series tonight. And thank you, BS Cigar Company, Brian, Steve, BS Golds, BS Silvers, great blends. Come to the Tinder Box of Easton and grab those.
Or call us, or reach out to us. I do also want to thank you. I know you're kind of wrapping it up. I want to thank all the people. So when part of the part that's really made us grow is sharing it to the different groups. So if you're part of some of the groups that I share it to, and you see it on Facebook Live, and you're part of that, is there's a handful, and one of the newest ones is Line of Duty Cigars. We had Mark, who was on earlier. I don't know if he's still on, but it's those groups that have that again shared community that definitely relate. And I share it to some cigar ones, bourbon ones, and other groups that we appreciate all your guys' support and support for each other.
Yes. Thank you, Dustin, again for being on. Thank you for doing everything that you do and sharing.
My pleasure. I love it just as much as you guys.
Yeah, this has been amazing. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. We're freezing our asses off
We're gonna
out
kick
here.
the heater in the
It's
music.
episode 52. We love everyone. Thank you for the support.
We got Nate Hale on next week also.
We got Nate Hale.
Yep.
And he's going to feature the amazing bottle of the Masterson's Rye.
Was it Masterson's?
Yes.
He's been sitting on it for about fucking 7 months.
June 9th. 7 years.
7 months.
We're excited to venture into that. Happy Whiskey Wednesday, Bourbon
Cheers.
BS Podcast.
Cheers.
Cheers. That was great.
I did it. Thank you. Fucking feet are fucking ice cubes.
That was great.